Chapter 1850. Xiaqi Juan used a supreme ability that only the direct descendants of Kuan Su could master to absorb the pure world energy of Kuan Su's divine realm. Rays of starlight formed from the pure world energy of Kuan Su's divine realm were attracted by Xiaqi Juan and gathered around him. Suddenly, the starlight trembled, and Xiaqi Juan suddenly lost control of the world energy. The rays of starlight seemed to be attracted by something, and after trembling for a while, they surged out of the formation space. Puff! Xiaqi Juan had just broken through, and the true qi and energy in his body were at their weakest. Now that the ability was suddenly interrupted, he immediately suffered a backlash. The world energy that had seeped into his body and divine abode went out of control, and his divine abode shook. His flesh and blood were shattered, and he spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood. Damn it, how could this be? After encountering so many bizarre events, Xiaqi Juan was shocked and angry, and he was extremely depressed. The abnormal movement of the world energy of Kuan Su's divine realm was the work of Su Fang. He used the ethereal enlightenment's ability, the ethereal myriad laws Tao, to slowly communicate with the world origin of Kuan Su's divine realm. The myriad worlds could not be compared to the major worlds. With Su Fang's current cultivation and mastery of the ethereal enlightenment, he could not easily shake the world origin of a major world like he could in the major worlds. However, communicating with the world origin and then using a mental cultivation method and hand seal, he could easily attract the pure world energy formed by the world origin. Right now, I'm the only one at the lowest level of Kuan Su's divine realm. Apart from me, who else can absorb the purest world energy of the 13th level? Could it be that Grandfather personally used this supreme ability? Xiaqi Juan couldn't figure it out, so he swallowed a medicinal pill. This was not an ordinary pill, but a high-grade divine essence pill. With his current cultivation, swallowing a high-grade pill was a bit difficult. If he was not careful, he might be injured because he could not control the violent medicinal energy. However, at this moment, Xiaqi Juan could not care about anything else. To be injured right after his breakthrough, if he didn't recover in time and stabilize his condition back to normal, it might leave behind hidden dangers in his future cultivation. He planned to swallow the high-grade divine essence pill first, and then absorb the pure power of the world. He would use the power of the world to suppress and refine the pill, and then use the power of the pill to fuse with the power of the world to heal his injuries and stabilize his cultivation base. Xiaqi Juan's idea wasn't wrong, but he was really unlucky today. Su Fang used the ethereal Tao of 10,000 laws and was able to communicate with the world origin of Kuan Su's God realm. Combined with his perfect ability, he could clearly sense the movements on the 13th floor. Xiaqi Juan, you humiliated me like this. You didn't expect me to take revenge so soon, did you? Seeing that Xiaqi Juan was prepared to stake it all on this, Su Fang's eyes flashed with a cold light. He no longer absorbed the pure world energy in the 13th level, allowing Xiaqi Juan to absorb world energy to recover and stabilize his cultivation. Law's voice came from the depths of his body. Su Fang, you are getting more and more despicable. If it weren't for my lack of strength, why would I need to use these methods? One day, I will defeat Xiaqi Juan fair and square and return the humiliation to him 10 times over. I will let him have a taste of being stepped on under someone's foot. Su Fang said coldly. Xiaqi Juan saw that the pure world strength of the 13th floor was no longer acting strangely. So he used his divine ability to slowly absorb the world's strength into his body. At the same time, he no longer sealed the medicinal power in his body and merged it with the world strength that was continuously absorbed. When Xiaqi Juan was surrounded by the rich pure world strength and surrounded by stars, Su Fang once again used the ethereal Tao of 10,000 laws. Boom! Xiaqi Juan was like a volcano that was about to erupt and suddenly lost the source of its power. He fell from the peak of eruption into an icy cave. The power of the backlash and the power of the pill that went out of control suddenly exploded in his divine palace and body. Puff, puff, puff. Xia Qijuan's divine palace shook violently, and cracks appeared. His body shattered layer by layer from the inside out. Blood spurted from his mouth, and he fell to the ground, unconscious. Seeing this scene, Su Fong smiled coldly and no longer paid attention to Xia Qijuan. He focused on absorbing the pure world strength of the 13th floor. The world strength of the 13th floor was extracted from the world origin of Kun Su's divine realm through the formation. It was more than 100 times purer and more abundant than the world strength of other places. Su Fongda absorbed this world strength without restraint, causing the world tree to grow and transform crazily. The world strength was then transformed into the world strength of yin and yang by the yang vein and the world tree. It poured into Su Fong's world, causing the world and his body to transform at an astonishing speed. When Su Fong absorbed the world strength on the path of Heaven's End and the path of transformation Supreme God, the domain covered by the power of the world was only 10 feet wide. When he activated the world in his body, the power of the world was roughly the same. At this time, after absorbing the pure world strength of Kun Su's divine realm, Su Fong's ability to control the world and the world strength in his body were growing crazily. At the top of the giant mountain of Kun Su's divine realm, the world origin moved strangely. Kun Su, Xianlingzi, and the yellow-browed old man immediately sensed it. Young Master Xia Qijuan, cultivating in the 13th floor of Kun Su's divine realm, can cause such a big movement of the world origin. It's incredible. Xianlingzi and the yellow-browed old man were shocked. Kun Su was also very surprised. Although Xia Qijuan's talent was extraordinary, after all, he was limited by his cultivation. Logically speaking, with his current cultivation realm, absorbing the world strength was unlikely to cause such a big movement. Except for Xia Qijuan, Kun Su couldn't think of anyone else who could have such ability. This was Kun Su's divine realm. Except for a few elites of the Xia family, who mastered the magical power to control the origin of Kun Su's divine realm. Young Master Xia, at such a young age, can actually have such an amazing ability to absorb the world's strength. His future achievements are limitless. It's not impossible for him to become a Star River Zone Lord in the future. The yellow-browed old man seized the opportunity to flatter. Kun Su stroked his beard and chuckled. He was very happy in his heart. Xianlingzi thought of his precious grandson and then looked at Xia Qijuan. He couldn't help but feel a little jealous. But on second thought, that disappointing grandson of his had now integrated with a mid-grade Earth-rank godhead. Although his future achievements were far from Xia Qijuan's, compared to before, it already made him feel very relieved. What more could he ask for? How could Mo Fenghua compare to Xia Qijuan? Wasn't this purely looking for trouble? Comparing people with people would make people angry. Kun Su nodded and said, Xia Qijuan is worthy of being a disciple of the Xia family. If nothing unexpected happens, he will be qualified to take over Kun Su's divine realm in the future. When he comes out of Kun Su's divine realm, let him first become a venerable Tao disciple of Kun Su's divine sect. Xianlingzi didn't think much of these words, but when the yellow-browed old man heard them, he was moved. In any power, there were cultivators who wholeheartedly cultivated, and there were also people who wanted to curry favor with the rich and powerful. Kun Su's divine sect was no exception, and this yellow-browed old man was one of them. It was already difficult for the yellow-browed old man to improve in cultivation, so he put his energy into power. Xia Qijuan had been personally appointed as a venerable Tao disciple by Kun Su. As long as nothing unexpected happened, he would definitely become the supreme ruler of Kun Su's divine sect. If he didn't curry favor with him now, when would he wait? Therefore, the yellow-browed old man bid farewell to Kun Su and left the peak of Kun Su's enormous mountain. He gathered all the elders of Kun Su's divine sect, including the various sects' venerables and special disciples at the entrance of Kun Su's divine realm. What were they doing? respectfully welcoming the venerable Tao disciple out of seclusion. Xia Qijuan was honored as a venerable Tao disciple. When a yellow-browed old man summoned him, other than a few great elders who dared to ignore him, who else dared to disobey? The elders and special disciples of Kun Su's divine sect all gathered. After Xia Yunji inquired, she also hurried over. As a Xianling dojo's venerable, Xianlingzi naturally received the yellow-browed old man's sound transmission. His precious grandson had just been publicly humiliated by Xia Qijuan, and he was full of displeasure. At this time, he naturally wouldn't flatter Xia Qijuan. Xia Qijuan had seized Su Fang's qualification to cultivate at the lowest level of Kun Su's divine realm for 100 years. At this time, it was still early for him to come out of seclusion. However, under the yellow-browed old man's command, the elders waited outside the spatial formation in the cave. The other special disciples sat cross-legged outside the entrance, respectfully waiting for Xia Qijuan to come out. In the formation space of Kun Su's divine realm's 12th level, Su Fang had absorbed enough pure power of the world to reach a state where he could absorb and refine it. Only then did he stop absorbing the power of the world. Counting the time with his fingers, there was still about 30 years until the 100-year deadline. The earth attribute power of nature here was so dense. Naturally, Su Fang wouldn't waste this opportunity. Thus, he continued to settle down in his cultivation state. Su Fang's original body remained in the formation space, cultivating the thick earth essence condensation technique and the art of driving mountain. This technique was a basic technique for true gods who had just ascended to the true god realm to gather the natural energy of heaven and earth to condense spirit essence. As the basic cultivation technique of Kun Su's divine sect disciples, the thick earth essence condensation technique naturally wasn't a powerful technique. It was a common technique that couldn't be more common. The art of driving mountain was the same. It was a low-level ability that even the official disciples of Kun Su's divine sect wouldn't cultivate. Su Fang had fused with the earth attribute godhead. He could only cultivate earth attribute techniques and abilities. At this time, he didn't have any other techniques or abilities to cultivate. In order not to waste this opportunity, he could only temporarily cultivate the thick earth essence condensation technique and the art of driving mountain. Soon, Su Fang shockingly discovered that the thick earth essence condensation technique and the art of driving mountain were as easy as eating and drinking to him. It was as if they were innate talents. It wasn't because these techniques were too simple, nor was it because of the earth-level mid-grade earth attribute godhead. Instead, it was because the primal grade godhead bestowed him with unparalleled cultivation talent. It made him feel as if he was standing on top of a mountain and looking down below. Any technique or ability was no mystery to him. This discovery made Su Fang very happy. He cultivated the thick earth essence condensation technique and condensed spirit essence in his divine palace. At the same time, he separated himself from the young immortal to comprehend the art of driving mountain. At the same time, Su Fang also started to separate his blood and water clones to cultivate and comprehend the Heaven's secret life, shrinking technique, Heaven's divination technique, 9 yang 9 transformations, ethereal truth, and other techniques. Unknowingly, Kun Su's 100 years of cultivation in the God realm were up. Su Fang was sent out of the 12th layer by the formation space's divine might. Chapter 1851. In the cave where the entrance to Kun Su's God realm was, the yellow-browed elder and over 30 elders of Kun Su, including Xia Yunji, were looking at Xia Qijuan expectantly. The yellow-browed elder praised sincerely, "Young Master Xia Qijuan's talent is extraordinary. At such a young age, he was able to move the world source of Kun Su's God realm. In the future, he will definitely be a realm lord. If I offend a leader, young Master Xia may even surpass the leader and become the lord of a great realm." The other elders also began to flatter Xia Qijuan without restraint. They praised Xia Qijuan as an unprecedented peerless genius of the Kun Su God world. What kind of person is my brother? Only Sanskrit's young master fan, Su, can be compared to him. Everyone's praises made Xia Yunji feel a little smug. Outside the cave, over 100 special disciples all stood up and stared at the entrance, hoping to see Xia Qijuan's glory and witness the rise of Kun Su's future leader. Dong Shanwei also brought a group of playboys outside the cave. This time, not only did they come to welcome Xia Qijuan out of seclusion and show their faces in front of the future leader, they also came for Su Fang. Wang, a divine array, suddenly emitted a spatial aura, and a figure appeared in the array. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Everyone's gazes focused on this figure, but they were all disappointed. Xia Yunji revealed a look of hatred and resentment, as if she had eaten a disgusting fly. The person who came out was none other than Su Fang. Seeing such a large formation in the cave, Su Fang was also shocked. Thinking that something big had happened, he cupped his fist towards the yellow-browed elder and asked, "Great elder, what happened? Move aside. When young Master Xia comes out of seclusion and sees you, wouldn't it be bad luck?" Peak first layer, true God realm. The yellow-browed elder waved his hand at Su Fang like he was shooing away a fly. Then he saw that Su Fang's cultivation had shockingly reached the peak of the first sky of true God realm. He couldn't help but be shocked. Su Fang had fused with the Godhead, stepped into the true God realm, and absorbed so much pure spiritual energy and world energy. In addition to the last few years of cultivation, he had unknowingly reached the peak of the first sky of the true God realm. When he entered Kun Su's God state, Su Fang was still a mortal at the mortal evolution state. It had only been 100 years, but he not only fused with an earth-level medium-grade God divinity and reached the true God state, but he also reached the peak of level 1. Although it wasn't considered shocking, it was still very shocking. True God realm, level 1 peak? Xia Yunji and the other elders were also flabbergasted. In their impression, Mo Fenghua was a complete trash. They didn't expect him to have such a change in a short 100 years. Naturally, they were surprised and shocked. Of course, in the eyes of these experts, a first sky of true God realm wasn't worth mentioning. It was no different from an ant. They were just shocked for a moment before shifting their attention to the God formation. Xianlingzi seems to have put in a lot of effort for you. The yellow-browed elder smiled faintly. He naturally thought that Su Fang could improve so quickly, all because of the pills or other spiritual items that Xianlingzi gave Su Fang. Thus, he sneered at Su Fang. Peak first sky of true God realm. His talent is really amazing. He has the right to be killed by young Master Fan Su. Xia Yunji's tone was filled with sarcasm and hatred. The elder in charge of Kun Su's God state shouted coldly at Su Fang, "Leave this place." At this moment, the space power of the God formation swept out a figure. "Young Master Xia is out," the yellow-browed elder shouted. Everyone's attention was focused on the God formation. Su Fang was very surprised. Although Xia Qijuan's promotion is extraordinary, it's not a big deal. Why is there such a big formation? Xia Qijuan's figure walked out of the God formation. "Congratulations, young Master Xia. Congratulations, young Master Xia." With the yellow-browed elder as the leader, all the elders shouted together. The special disciples outside the cave also shouted loudly. However, at the next moment, the congratulatory voices in the cave stopped abruptly. Xia Qijuan didn't look as high-spirited as people imagined. On the contrary, his robe was stained with blood. His hair was messy and his face was pale. He looked like he had aged 30 years. Not only was his breath weak, it was also very chaotic. He clearly looked like he was seriously injured. Everyone was stunned and looked at Xia Qijuan in disbelief. Even a blind person could see that Xia Qijuan had a big problem. Su Fang couldn't help but laugh. Xia Qijuan also didn't expect that there would be such a big formation outside. He raised his spirit and revealed his imposing manner. "What are you all doing?" Xia Yunji said. "Brother has been appointed as Kun Su Divine Sect's honorable Tao disciple by grandfather." The great elder specially brought many elders and special disciples to congratulate him. Brother seems to be tired. You should go back and rest. This girl was smart. Seeing that Xia Qijuan was in trouble, she quickly helped Xia Qijuan smooth things over. At this time, Su Fong suddenly shouted, "Congratulations, young Master Xia, for coming out of seclusion. Congratulations, young Master Xia, for successfully advancing." Su Fong's voice was full of respect and flattery. However, in Xia Qijuan's ears, it was like a thorn, but he couldn't do it. The elders in the cave didn't dare to speak. The special disciples outside didn't know Xia Qijuan's current situation. When they heard Su Fong's congratulatory voice, they all shouted loudly. These special disciples were afraid that Xia Qijuan couldn't hear them. They were also afraid that Xia Qijuan would feel that they weren't respectful enough after hearing them. Therefore, they used their divine might to spread their voices throughout the entire Kuan Su divine realm. Moreover, their voices carried incomparable reverence and flattery. Xia Qijuan felt as if there were 10,000 flying swords stabbing his heart back and forth countless times. A surge of blood qi surged up and almost spurted out of his mouth. Xia Qijuan fiercely glared at Su Fong. He forcefully suppressed his blood qi, then took out a brand new Taoist robe and put it on. Regaining his spirit, he strode out. After receiving everyone's congratulations and a few polite words, Xia Qijuan left with Xia Yunji. When he walked out of everyone's sight, Xia Qijuan's vision turned black and he fainted. This time, although he successfully advanced in the lowest level of the divine realm in Kuan Su, he was seriously injured. Not only was he unable to stabilize his condition, he was on the verge of falling back to the divine realm. Without special pills, spiritual items, and a long period of time, Xia Qijuan would find it hard to recover. What was even more serious was that his future cultivation would also be severely affected. This wasn't an injury from a battle, but an injury from a breakthrough. This was an injury to the foundation of his cultivation. This was something that no true god cultivator wanted to see. The elders of the Kuan Su god sect were all cunning old foxes. Naturally, they could tell that their attempt to flatter Xia Qijuan had backfired. None of them were interested in flattering Xia Qijuan. After Xia Qijuan left, they all left the entrance of the Kuan Su god realm at their fastest speed. The other special disciples also followed suit. This time, Xia Qijuan suffered a loss. Consider this a bit of interest. Su Fong sneered in his heart. He was the last to leave the cave. Mo Fenghua. Just as Su Fong walked out, Dongshan Wei brought a dozen hedonistic disciples and surrounded him. "What's the matter?" Su Fong revealed a trembling expression. Dongshan Wei came at the right time. He might as well take care of his matters. Dongshan Wei shouted domineeringly. "Mo Fenghua, why are you pretending to be confused in front of this young master? What happened to the task this young master gave you before entering the Kuan Su divine realm?" Before entering the Kuan Su divine realm, Dongshan Wei gave Su Fong a Dao bottle to collect the essence of the world energy of Kuan Su divine realm's 13th level. Although it was called collecting, it was actually stealing. Don't look at the small Dao bottle. Its capacity wasn't small. If it was filled with the pure world energy of Kuan Su divine realm, it would definitely be a precious treasure that could be sold for a high price. Su Fong angrily said, "Dongshan Wei, you clearly know that my qualification to enter the lower level of the Kuan Su divine realm was taken away by Xia Qijuan. Where would I go to collect the pure world energy of Kuan Su divine realm for you?" Dongshan Wei said domineeringly, "This young master doesn't care about this. Since you didn't complete the task this young master gave you, then compensate this young master with 1,000 mid-grade divine essence pills." In a myriad worlds, 1,000 mid-grade divine essence pills was not a small number. It was practically the entire wealth of a celestial deity realm expert. No matter how much Mo Fenghua was doted on by Xian Lingzi, it was impossible for her to take out such a large number of mid-grade divine essence pills all of a sudden. Dongshan Wei was clearly opening his mouth like a lion, wanting to ruthlessly extort a sum. Su Fong couldn't help but gnash his teeth. "Dongshan Wei, you're going too far. Aye, what do you want? Could it be that you want to eat this young master?" Dong Shanwei mocked, and the other hedonistic young masters also roared with laughter. Dong Shanwei pointed at his lower body and said with a sinister smile, "Fine, this young master will give you a chance. Kneel and lick me. If you make this young master feel good, take out 100 mid-grade divine essence pills, and this matter will be considered over. I'll fight you to the death. I want to challenge you to a life and death battle with you." Su Fong was completely enraged and looked like he was going to throw caution to the wind. "You want to have a life and death battle with this young master? This young master is at the 7th layer of the true God realm. You've just fused with a divine spark and are only at the 1st layer of the true God realm. You want to challenge this young master?" Dong Shanwei was startled. Then, as if he had heard the funniest joke, he let out a burst of wild laughter. The other hedonistic young masters also laughed, and some laughed until their stomachs hurt. "Accept him." Suddenly, someone transmitted a message to Dong Shanwei. /= so it was Mo Yuntian. He was also a special disciple of Kuan Su's divine sect. This time, to welcome Xia Qijuan out of seclusion, he also came here. He originally stayed to see Su Fong be humiliated by Dong Shanwei, but he didn't expect Su Fong to recklessly take the initiative to issue a challenge. Moreover, it was a life and death battle. He immediately felt that the opportunity to get rid of Su Fong had come, so he secretly transmitted a message to Dong Shanwei. Dong Shanwei replied, "Although Mo Fenghua is trash, his identity is not ordinary. If I really kill him, I won't be able to deal with Elder Xianling. No need to kill him. Just cripple his divine palace. After this, I'll give you 100 mid-grade divine essence pills. Then it's settled." Dong Shanwei readily agreed. Chapter 1852. Kuan Su's divine sect had 18 dojos. Just the official disciples alone numbered over 30 million. It was inevitable that there would be conflicts between disciples. Kuan Su's divine sect strictly forbade disciples from fighting in private. However, it didn't forbid public duels. Furthermore, there was a life and death stage for disciples who had conflicts to duel. Once on the life and death stage, life and death were determined by fate. Of course, unless it was an unresolvable blood feud, there wouldn't be deaths on the life and death stage. Su Fong and Dong Shanwei arrived at the life and death stage. 2 female disciples were currently fighting to the death on the life and death stage. Below the stage, over 100 disciples were watching. It turned out that these 2 female disciples were fighting over a male disciple. Thus, in a fit of anger, they entered the life and death stage. Once a woman became ruthless, she was 10 times more ferocious than a man. Seeing this, Su Fong was shocked to the core. He warned himself in his heart to avoid provoking women in the future. Of course, women like Xia Yunji were an exception. Dong Shanwei loudly shouted, "Both of you stop. This young master wants to fight to the death with Mo Fenghua." Mo Fenghua. The 2 female disciples were originally in a life and death situation. However, after hearing Dong Shanwei's words, they immediately stopped fighting. After cursing at each other, they jumped off the stage. It wasn't that Dong Shanwei's face was big enough, but that the name Mo Fenghua was too hateful, especially female disciples. No matter if they had lost their undergarments or not, which one of them didn't hate Mo Fenghua, who had bad habits? Since Mo Fenghua wanted to fight to the death with Dong Shanwei, the 2 female disciples immediately stopped. Between them was a personal grudge. However, Mo Fenghua was the public enemy of all female disciples in Kuan Su's divine sect. Naturally, they had to put their personal grudges aside. When the 2 female disciples got off the stage, they immediately took out rune talismans and spread the news of Mo Fenghua and Dong Shanwei's life and death duel. The disciples below the stage all did the same thing. This scene made Dong Shanwei and the other hedonistic young masters laugh. Su Fong, on the other hand, was very depressed. Mo Fenghua was truly pitiful to be in such a state. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Disciples came one after another. They quickly surrounded the life and death stage. Most of them were ordinary disciples, but there were also some core disciples and special disciples. Xia Yunji also came to the life and death arena. Su Fang scolded her in public and directly divorced her. She wanted to see Su Fang die with her own eyes. Only then could she quell the hatred in her heart. In addition, Xia Qijuan's matter had caused Xia Yunji to have some suspicions. What Xia Qijuan encountered in Kuan Su's God's realm was too bizarre, and Su Fang happened to be in the 12th layer of the formation space. Moreover, Xia Yunji, with her woman's intuition, felt that Mo Fenghua was not the same as before, so she hoped to find some clues through the duel between Su Fang and Dong Shanwei. Su Fang and Dong Shanwei stepped onto the life and death platform. In front of the law enforcement disciples of the punishment hall, the two of them were about to sign the life and death duel contract. At this moment, Uncle Chong hurried over. "Young master, you mustn't." Then, Ling Xiang's cold voice was heard. "Brat, are you courting death?" Before his voice even fell, demonic energy swept out, and a charming Ling Xiangmei appeared on the life and death platform. "You brat, just advance to the true God realm, and you're starting to get cocky, is it? You actually dare to challenge a 7th firmament true God?" Yeah. Ling Xiangmei saw that Su Fang's cultivation had actually reached the peak of the 1st firmament true God realm. She couldn't help but be surprised, and then felt gratified. However, being surprised was one thing. Ling Xiangmei didn't think that Su Fang had the strength to challenge Dong Shanwei. She said coldly to Dong Shanwei, "You bastard, in the past you often bullied my family's Fenghua. This seat didn't want to bother with you, but this time you actually provoked him onto the life and death platform. If you want his life, this seat will peel off a layer of your skin." Ling Xiangmei was an elder expert of the heaven-surpassing deity realm, and she was also a demon god. Under her deterrence, Dong Shanwei swayed, unable to stand. The berserk demonic energy nearly scared him to the point of peeing his pants. A figure jumped onto the life and death platform and waved his hand, releasing an aura that shattered the shackles on Dong Shanwei's body. He coldly shouted, "Ling Xiangmei, you coquettish fox, you're too shameless. A dignified elder actually dares to bully a junior." This was a middle-aged man with an illusory aura. His appearance was very similar to Dong Shanwei. He was Dong Shanwei's father, an elder expert of the Kuan Su divine sect. Although Ling Xiangmei's identity was extraordinary, she was still a demon god. Therefore, her position in the Kuan Su divine sect was one level lower than the other elders. The Dongshan clan was a large clan of the Kuan Su divine sect. They controlled the Dongshan dojo, which was one of the top 3 dojos in the Kuan Su divine sect. Moreover, one of their grand elders came from the Dongshan clan. Therefore, Dong Shanwei didn't put Ling Xiangmei in his eyes and spoke rudely. "Dong Shanwei, could it be that you want to have a life and death duel with this seat?" Ling Xiangmei burst out with monstrous demonic energy and was about to fight Dong Shanwei. Dong Shanwei didn't show any weakness. A majestic aura rose like a mountain. At this moment, Su Fang suddenly sent a message to Ling Xiangmei. "Aunt Mei, don't worry. I have confidence in defeating Dong Shanwei." "You have confidence in defeating Dong Shanwei?" Ling Xiangmei was shocked and stunned. "Aunt Mei, I'm not stupid. I almost died in the cloudy, divine world. I cherish my life very much. If I didn't have confidence, why would I take the initiative to throw my life away? Aunt Mei, believe me this time." "Kid, I'll believe you this time." Ling Xiangmei was skeptical. After thinking for a while, she jumped off the life and death stage. If Su Fang's life was in danger, it wouldn't be too late to save him. Dong Shanwei also jumped off the life and death stage and shouted at Dong Shanwei, "Don't worry. Father will support you. Let's see which coquettish fox dares to touch a hair on your head." Ling Xiangmei was furious and sent a message to Su Fang. "Beat up that Dongshan clan kid for this old lady. It's fine as long as you don't kill him. As long as you defeat this kid, this old lady will give you a used undergarment." Ugh. Cough, cough, cough. Su Fang was using his primordial spirit to imprint the life and death document. When he heard Ling Xiangmei's words, he immediately coughed and staggered. This Ling Xiangmei simply wouldn't stop until she shocked him to death. Both sides signed the life and death document. The law enforcement disciple of the punishment hall said loudly, "Although both of you have signed the life and death document, when fighting, both sides must stop. After all, it involves Elder Xianling and Dong Shanwei Great Elder. It'll be hard to explain if either of them is injured." Dong Shanwei shouted coldly, "Cut the crap. Since you've signed the life and death document, then life and death is irrelevant. This is a life and death battle between this young master and this trash. I don't need you to tell me what to do. Scram." Although this law enforcement disciple held a position in the punishment hall and was awe-inspiring in front of ordinary disciples, he didn't dare to offend Dong Shanwei. After being scolded by Dong Shanwei in public, he didn't dare to say anything and directly jumped off the life and death stage. Dong Shanwei pointed at Su Fong and grinned. "Trash, this young master will beat you until you kneel and lick." Just as Dong Shanwei was speaking, Su Fong suddenly formed a seal. In terms of cultivation, Su Fong was far inferior to Dong Shanwei. However, in terms of experience, compared to Su Fong, a cultivator who ascended from a great world, Dong Shanwei was no different from a rookie. In a life and death battle, he still had to talk nonsense when facing the enemy. He was simply courting death. Shameless. This is a sneak attack. I didn't expect that trash Mo Fenghua to be so despicable. He even stole the undergarments of female disciples. What other despicable things can he do? The disciples below the stage all shouted angrily, reprimanding Su Fong for his sneak attack. Ling Xiangmei was startled and immediately revealed a smile. "This kid isn't too stupid. Not bad, I like it." Mountain driving art? Mo Fenghua actually used trash like the mountain driving art to fight a life and death battle with Dong Shanwei. Even if he shamelessly launched a sneak attack, how could he do anything to Dong Shanwei? The disciples below the stage could tell at a glance that Su Fong's technique was a common technique like the mountain taming art. They all burst into laughter. But Ling Xiangmei's eyes lit up, her deep pupils revealing a look of pleasant surprise. Su Fong had just fused with a divine spark and advanced to true God realm. When had he cultivated any divine ability? From when he fused with a divine spark and advanced to true God until now, it had only been several decades. Being able to grasp the mountain driving art was already rather not easy. Su Fong's hand seals looked extremely simple, but the speed was unbelievably fast, completing in the time it took for sparks to fly off a flint. Furthermore, the seal-forming technique was incomparably adept, giving people a feeling of moving clouds and flowing water. If it were those ordinary disciples who cultivated this divine ability for tens of thousands of years, being able to reach Su Fong's current height was also not something rare. But Su Fong had only cultivated for several decades at most. Such cultivation talent. How could Ling Xiangmei not be surprised? The earth attribute heaven and earth natural spiritual energy in the surrounding space rapidly converged towards Su Fong, condensing into the phantom of an enormous mountain peak. Then Su Fong smashed out with a punch, akin to a large mountain smashing out ruthlessly. Dong Shanwei's incomparably arrogant words had just been spoken halfway when Su Fong's attack came crushing over. Caught off guard, how could he have time to use his divine ability? In a hurry, Dong Shanwei opened his mouth and spat out a small green mountain, which quickly transformed into a 3-meter-tall hill in front of him. This was a low-grade divine artifact. With Dong Shanwei's cultivation base, if he was given enough time to activate it, he could barely activate nearly half of its power. Su Fong's attack was too sudden, and the speed at which he used his divine ability was too fast, so much so that Dong Shanwei was only able to activate one level of the divine artifact's power. Boom! 9 true, 9 yang. The 30-meter tall hill collided with Su Fong's divine ability. It was like a mountain crushing a small hill, immediately sending Dong Shanwei's divine artifact flying. With a series of rumbling sounds, it rapidly shrank, turning into a streak of azure light that flew back into Dong Shanwei's body. Dong Shanwei had fused with the divine artifact, and at this time, the divine artifact was shaken back to its original form. His primordial spirit and blood chi were also impacted, causing him to feel dizzy. His blood chi also surged, and he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. The mountain driving art, a common item, could actually burst out with such extraordinary power, giving people a strong visual impact. The audience was immediately silent. Even Dongshan Wan's eyes revealed a dignified expression, and he loudly warned Dongshan Wei, "Don't underestimate the enemy. He is not simple. Trash. Are you planning to use trash like the mountain driving art to humiliate this young master? This young master will make you wish you were dead." Dongshan Mountain Divine Seal. Chapter 1853. The Earth Tao Law was thick and vast. It could bear all things, and at the same time, it could suppress and seal all things. Suppressing and sealing was one of the Earth Tao laws. Dongshan Wei's divine ability was called Dongshan Mountain Divine Seal. It was the Dongshan clan's supreme, inherited divine ability. It used hand seals to trigger the Earth Tao law to suppress and seal the enemy. Its power was incomparably powerful. It was said that when this divine ability's power was used to the extreme, it could seal an entire divine realm. What a powerful divine ability! Su Fang also sensed the terror of Dongshan Wei's attack. His eyes were solemn. He didn't dare to be careless and quickly form hand seals. Ling Xiangmei, who was ready to save Dongshan Wei, was also about to break Dongshan Wei's divine ability. Who knew that Dongshan Wan would flash in front of Ling Xiangmei and block her? A majestic aura sealed her. Ling Xiangmei was furious. Dongshan Wan scram. Dongshan Wan smiled proudly. "Mo Fenghua isn't your son. Why are you so worried about him? If you interfere in a battle between juniors, I won't stand by and watch. Young master, be careful." Chong Bo jumped and punched the array around the life and death stage. In order to prevent the disciples from accidentally injuring the people below the stage, the array around the life and death stage was very sturdy. It wasn't hard for a powerhouse like Ling Xiangmei to break the array. However, Chong Bo, a celestial deity, was helpless. His full-strength attack only shook the array. Scram! Dongshan Wan waved his sleeve and sent Chong Bo flying with a majestic aura. Chong Bo's sternum was shattered and his internal organs were injured. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He clenched his teeth and wanted to go up the stage. Xia Yunji blocked him and said coldly, "Is a battle between masters something a slave like you can interfere with? If you dare to act rashly again, I'll kill you." Mo Yuntian, who was hiding in the crowd, looked at the stage and smiled sinisterly. "This time, let's see how you escape the fate of being suppressed." The many Kuan Su Divine Sect disciples below the stage all cheered loudly. Especially the female disciples. They were all very excited. Die! Dongshan Wei's divine ability also burst out at this moment. With his current level of cultivation, using the Dongshan clan's unparalleled Abhijna was clearly a bit difficult. Just one powerful attack had already pushed his divine yuan and dermic powers to the limits of what he could bear. His face was pale, and his entire body trembled. However, the might of this attack was incomparably shocking. A terrifying aura that seemed capable of suppressing heaven and earth enveloped Su Fang, and it was about to shackle and suppress Su Fang. Boom! Su Fang urged the mountain controlling art. A mountain phantom had just condensed beside him when it collapsed under the divine ability released by Dongshan Wei. It only managed to stop the sealing power for a moment. Su Fang's body trembled, but the seal in his hand did not stop at all. In an instant, two illusory mountain peaks were condensed again. After being crushed into pieces again, Su Fang made hand seals again and again. Earth element natural spiritual energy quickly condensed into three illusory mountain peaks from the life and death arena under his feet and surroundings. Just like that, they shattered again and again. Su Fang made hand seals again and again. In the end, 9 illusory mountain peaks were condensed. They overlapped and formed a mountain range, condensing 9 illusory mountain peaks. This is the manifestation of cultivating the mountain controlling art to the extreme. When did Mo Fenghua cultivate the mountain controlling art? He actually cultivated it to such a level? Impossible. How can a cultivator who just ascended to the true immortal realm cultivate the mountain controlling art to the extreme? There was an uproar below the stage. The mountain controlling art was the most common divine ability of the Kuan Su divine sect disciples. It was said that when cultivated to the extreme, one could control the power of mountains and condense 9 illusory mountain peaks. In other words, one possessed the power of 9 mountains. Using the art of Mountain Rider to the extreme would naturally result in an extraordinary power. However, other than those cultivators of lowly birth and extremely poor talent, who would be so free as to constantly cultivate a low-level technique like the art of Mountain Rider and cultivate it to the extreme. And yet Mo Fenghua, a piece of trash who had just ascended to the true immortal realm, was displaying the extreme of the mountain-controlling art in front of everyone. One could imagine the shock it caused. Dongshan Wei's Dongshan Town Divine Seal was eroded layer by the mountain peaks condensed by Su Feng's mountain-controlling art. In the end, it collapsed and turned into nothingness. It's broken. Mo Fenghua actually used trash like the mountain-controlling art to break the Dongshan Town Divine Seal of the Dongshan family. Everyone below the stage was shocked. Their minds were filled with the words impossible. The pressure on Su Feng instantly vanished without a trace, and he staggered. His face became as pale as a sheet, and his entire body trembled. Using the mountain driving technique in succession had similarly caused his spirit energy and magic power to reach the brink of exhaustion. In terms of true strength, Su Feng had too many divine abilities that could defeat Dongshan Wei or even kill him instantly. However, what Su Feng could use right now could only be Kuan Su's divine sect divine ability. Otherwise, if others saw through the slightest clue, they might suspect his identity and bring about a great disaster. Su Feng had no other choice. The only divine ability he could use was the mountain controlling art. That was why he was in such a sorry state. He possessed a primal chaos divine spark. His comprehension and mastery of the mountain controlling art, the lowest level of earth attribute divine ability, was like reading a book on his palm. Using a few decades to cultivate the mountain controlling art to the extreme was not a difficult matter. However, compared to his trash identity, it was truly a bit shocking. Under the gazes of the crowd, Su Feng walked towards Dongshan Wei step by step. Trash, you can actually resolve this young master's supreme divine ability. How is that possible? Only now did Dongshan Wei start to panic. He hurriedly swallowed a medicinal pill that could rapidly recover his divine yuan. Only then did his heart calm down a bit. Trash, both you and this young master have exhausted our divine yuan. How about this duel be considered a draw? Although Dongshan Wei was arrogant, he was not a fool. He thought of ways to stall for time and use medicinal pills to recover his divine yuan. You can't duel just because your divine yuan is exhausted. Su Feng went from a small world to a large world. He had experienced countless fierce battles on the path of cultivation. How could he not see through Dongshan Wei's little trick? Smiling coldly, Su Feng directly pounced at Dongshan Wei with his physical strength. This young master's cultivation is far higher than yours. Could it be that I'm afraid of you, a first firmament true god, in a competition of divine bodies? Fusing with a divine spark, condensing a divine body and yang spirit, and then advancing to the true god realm. This was common knowledge that all the deities in the universe knew. How could Dongshan Wei have thought that Su Feng was an anomaly? Not only was he an ascender from the lower realm, but he had also condensed a divine body from a great perfection physical body when he was in a large world. At this time, his divine body had already surpassed the true God realm and reached the height of the celestial God realm. Competing with Su Feng in terms of divine body was like an egg hitting a rock. Boom, boom, boom. What happened next could no longer be called a duel. It was a crushing, a ravaging. Su Feng didn't use any divine ability. He used his physical strength to fiercely attack. Every punch landed solidly on Dong Shanwei's body. Dong Shanwei's body shattered and then rapidly recovered. Then, the nightmare from before repeated itself. His body shattered and then recovered again. This scene caused the audience to fall into a deathly silence. Apart from the muffled sounds of Dong Shanwei's body being violently attacked and the sound of his flesh and bones shattering, no other sound could be heard. Of course, there was also Dong Shanwei's miserable scream. The disciples below the stage trembled with fear. They never thought that this good-for-nothing trash actually had such a ruthless side. Mo Fenghua's previous image of an idiot and trash in everyone's minds collapsed with a loud bang. It was completely overturned. Xia Yunji looked at Su Fong on the stage with fear in her eyes. It was difficult for her to associate him with the idiot young master in her mind, but she couldn't see any clues from Su Fong's body. Mo Yuntian was even more incredulous. He felt a huge threat in his heart. Only now did he realize that Su Fong didn't seem to be talking nonsense when he said he wanted to use him as a stepping stone. I admit defeat. Dong Shanwei had never been so ravaged in his life. His will completely collapsed, and he began to loudly beg for mercy. Have you forgotten? This is a duel of life and death. It won't stop until one of us dies. It's useless even if you kneel and lick my feet now. Su Fong said coldly, but he didn't show any mercy. He punched Dong Shanwei's face again, and with a crack, his nose shattered. Mo Fenghua, don't go too far. Dong Shanwei shouted angrily. When you humiliated me, I also said the same thing. But the way you answered me was like this. Su Fong punched Dong Shanwei's mouth again. All of his teeth fell out, and he couldn't speak anymore. Stop. Seeing his son suffer such humiliation, Dong Shanwan couldn't hold back any longer and rushed towards the life and death arena. Dong Shanwan, you're interfering in the matters of the younger generation. Don't you feel too shameless? Fenghua, beat him up for me. If you beat him to death, I'll take responsibility for you. Ling Xiangmei was also someone who wanted to see the world plunged into chaos. She chuckled happily, and then her demonic chi exploded, turning into a burning demonic flame that swept towards Dong Shanwan. The two elder-level powerhouses began to fight below the stage, scaring the spectators away for fear of being affected and suffering an unexpected calamity. Boom! Su Fong kicked Dong Shanwei to the ground, then raised his foot and stomped on Dong Shanwei's abdomen. His eyes flashed with ruthless and fierce killing intent as he said coldly, Dong Shanwei, I'm going to destroy your cultivation path. Dong Shanwan turned pale with fright and shouted coldly, Mo Fenghua, you dare. Mo Fenghua, stop. The head elder of punishments shot through the air and yelled at Su Fong coldly. It turned out that it was the enforcement disciple of the disciplinary hall. Seeing that things had gotten out of hand, he immediately used a talisman to report to the upper echelons of the disciplinary hall, alarming the head elder of punishments. Seeing Dong Shanwei being stomped under Su Fong's foot like a dead dog, the head elder of punishment's face was filled with disbelief. Dong Shanwan stopped his battle with Ling Xiangmei and yelled at the head elder of punishments, Mo Fenghua dares to commit a crime in public. If the disciplinary hall doesn't enforce the law impartially, the Dongshan clan will definitely not tolerate it. The head elder of punishments raised his eyebrows and said to Su Fong in a deep voice, Mo Fenghua, I still haven't settled the matter before. Why are you causing trouble again? Chapter 1854. Punishment head elder said, let Dong Shanwei go for now. If he violates the divine sex laws, I will naturally punish him accordingly. Greater than or equal to 8, greater than or equal to 8, greater than or equal to reading, greater than or equal to books, square root. Su Fong had the intention of letting Dong Shanwei go. He took out a Dao bottle from his profound jade ring. Dong Shanwei is insane. He forced me to steal Kuan Su's God Realm's purest world energy, or else he'll break my neck. Punishment head elder's face immediately darkened. He said coldly to Dong Shanwei, what guts even daring to have ideas about Kuan Su's God Realm? Elder Dong Shan, you've raised a good son. Kuan Su's God Realm was the holy land for the upper echelons and special disciples of Kuan Su's divine sect. The 13th level's purest world energy was extremely precious. Stealing it was a serious offense against the divine sect's laws. Punishment Hall could directly cripple his divine palace and expel him from the divine sect. Su Fong then said righteously, "Although I, Mo Fenghua, act absurdly, I still know the severity of things. Even if you beat me to death, I wouldn't do anything that would endanger the divine sect. Thus, I would rather die than comply." I had no choice but to challenge Dongshan Wei to a life and death duel. Everyone below snorted in disdain. Mo Fenghua even dared to steal the underwear of female disciples. Although Punishment Hall had cleared him of playing with over 100 female disciples, no one believed his innocence. Who would believe that such a bastard would challenge Dongshan Wei to a life and death duel to protect the divine sect's interests? Su Fong continued, "Punishment Head Elder, I've done a good deed for the sect. How can that be considered messing around?" Punishment Head Elder said, "That's right. You've done a good deed this time. I'll reward you with 1,000 low-grade God Essence pills. As for Dongshan Wei, I'll punish him according to the law. Let him go." Su Fong showed an embarrassed expression. This is a life and death duel between Dongshan Wei and I. Punishment Hall shouldn't interfere, right? It's not impossible to let him go, but the Dongshan clan has to pay for his life. The great elder of punishment was startled. Soon after, he said indifferently, "Since it is a life and death battle, I will naturally not interfere. However, it is best if no one dies." Dongshan Wan shouted coldly, "Mo Fenghua, you dare blackmail my Dongshan clan? It seems that Dongshan Wei's life is not worth much in the eyes of the East Mountain Elder." Su Fong smiled helplessly and exerted force with the tip of his foot, causing Dongshan Wei to spit out blood with his internal organs. Dongshan Wan was so angry that his face turned green. "I'll give you 100 low-grade Shin Yuan Dan and immediately release Dongshan Wei. Dongshan Wei's life is only worth 100 low-grade divine essence pills? Or does the East Mountain Elder take me for a fool?" Su Fong exerted his strength again, and Dongshan Wei screamed like a pig being slaughtered. "Father, save me! Here are 10,000 divine jade treasures, enough to buy 10,000 low-grade pills. Release him." Dongshan Wan knew that he had to bleed a bit. He clenched his teeth and took out a storage ring, flying towards Ling Xiangmei. "I didn't expect your life to be so valuable. Come find me more in the future," Su Fong said to Dongshan Wei with a chuckle. Dongshan Wei was so angry that his head tilted and he immediately fainted. Su Fong walked to the side of the stage and swept his eyes over Xia Yunji and Mo Yuntian, smiling lightly. This time, Dongshan Wei was just the beginning. One day, Xia Yunji, Mo Yuntian, Xia Qijuan, and Fan Su would all be dealt with. Accompanied by Ling Xiangmei and Uncle Chong, Su Fong left in embarrassment. Xianlingzi's grandson. Everyone thought he was a good-for-nothing. I didn't expect him to be such a powerful character. However, this lord's divine jade isn't that easy to take. This lord will make you spit it out 10 times over. Dongshan Wan coldly snorted and left the life and death stage with the unconscious Dongshan Wei. The crowd below the stage discussed spiritedly. When they discussed Mo Fenghua's name, they no longer called him good-for-nothing and good-for-nothing, but with fear. The matter of the life and death stage quickly spread throughout Kuan Su's divine sect. Everyone who knew of Mo Fenghua was not surprised. However, the famous special disciples all laughed it off, treating the battle between Su Fong and Dongshan Wei as a child's play. When Su Fong returned to Xianlingzi's dojo, he was immediately called over by Xianlingzi. After carefully asking, Xianlingzi's dignified face blossomed into a brilliant smile. Tens of thousands of years of laughter was released at this moment, and his laughter never stopped. How could Xianlingzi not be happy? The son he had high hopes for had unfortunately died, leaving behind Mo Fenghua as his only child, who knew that he would be a good-for-nothing, causing him to worry about him all these years. Who knew? A good-for-nothing who didn't hold any hope had actually fused with more than 90% of a middle-grade Earth-ranked divine spark. Furthermore, in a mere few decades after fusing with the divine spark, he had advanced to the peak of the first layer of true God. What was especially shocking was that he had actually cultivated the mountain-driving art, a low-grade divine ability, to the extreme, and defeated Dongshan Wei, who was several levels higher than him. With such talent, what was he if not a genius? At least in Xianlingzi's heart, his grandson was already Kun Su's divine sex #1 genius, and was far from being comparable to Xia Qijuan. What made Xianlingzi most pleasantly surprised was the scheming and ruthless methods he displayed in the life and death duel with Dongshan Wei. In the divine realm, there were many geniuses with outstanding talent. However, those who could become true peerless experts were few and far between. Why was that? To become an expert, outstanding geniuses with outstanding talent often attracted the jealousy of others. If they didn't have outstanding, scheming, and ruthless methods, they would die much faster than those mediocre people. Xianlingzi could still protect his grandson now, but he couldn't protect him for a lifetime. How could he not be comforted by Su Fang's performance this time? Fenghua, it's a pity that you woke up a bit late. If you could have this performance 10,000 years ago, you might have had the opportunity to represent Kun Su's divine realm and participate in the Kimiko Hoshino tournament. Sai, what a pity. Xianlingzi looked very regretful. Su Fang asked in astonishment, Kimiko Hoshino, what's that? You actually don't know about Kimiko Hoshino? That's right. You were muddle-headed before, so you naturally wouldn't care about these things. Although you have no hope of participating in the Kimiko Hoshino tournament, I'll still tell you about it. Xianlingzi spoke tirelessly to Su Fang. Kun Su's divine realm was just a small world that belonged to a large world called Star Billow Divine Realm. The great world of the myriad worlds was either a large plane or an innumerable number of small planes. The divine world that surrounded the large planes was so vast that it was far beyond Su Fang's imagination. Among the small worlds that belonged to the Star Billow Divine Realm, there were more than 1,000 forces like Kun Su's divine realm. One could imagine how vast the Star Billow Divine Realm was and how powerful its forces were. More than 10,000 years ago, for some unknown reason, the Star Billow Divine Realm suddenly announced that they would hold the Kimiko Hoshino tournament 100,000 years later. They would select geniuses from all the small worlds under their command, and any gods whose lifespan was less than 10 million years could participate. Moreover, the Star Billow Divine Realm's conditions were incomparably attractive. Any genius who entered the top 10,000 would be heavily rewarded. The rewards were so generous that even experts like Xianlingzi were jealous. If one entered the top 100, the rewards were even more astonishing. Moreover, one would directly become a special disciple of the Star Billow Divine Realm, whose status was comparable to the Realm Master of Small World. Not only that, the top 100 geniuses of the Kimiko Hoshino tournament would also be recommended to participate in the entire star field's genius selection competition and have the opportunity to become famous in the star field. How many geniuses were there in the star field where the Star Billow Divine Realm was located? Gods from small worlds didn't even dare to think about it. But it was extremely possible to become a special disciple of the Star Billow Divine Realm. This kind of opportunity to soar into the sky, any god who met the conditions would naturally scramble like a flock of ducks. However, the Star Billow Divine Realm only gave Kun Su's divine realm 100 spots to participate. The geniuses who qualified to participate in the Kimiko Hoshino were naturally very few. Even those famous special disciples might not have the opportunity to participate. Su Fang, a god who had just ascended to the true god realm, naturally didn't have the qualifications to participate. When Xianlingzi told Su Fang about this matter, he originally planned to motivate him. Of course, he didn't expect Su Fang to participate in the Kimiko Hoshino tournament. However, Su Fang had an idea, and his heart thumped loudly. Opportunity. This is my chance to quickly rise from the divine realm. If I can enter the top 100 in the Kimiko Hoshino tournament, what would Xia Yunji, Xia Qijuan, and that fan Su amount to? If I can become famous in the star field, Even Shinja Tianjun will find it difficult to do anything to me. The divine realm is really too big, and I'm too weak right now. Now that I've changed my appearance and am living under someone else's roof, I don't even have the ability to walk out of Kuin Su's divine realm. Only by taking advantage of this opportunity can I continue to improve my strength and have a chance to find Xuanxin, Sister Bai, and the second primordial spirit. There are still nearly 90,000 years until the Kamiko Hoshino tournament. I can definitely catch up and get a place in Kuin Su's divine sect. I should be very confident in rushing into the top 100 in the tournament. Su Fong made up his mind, and his eyes flashed with yearning and expectation. Xian Lingzi saw Su Fong's eyes and knew what he was thinking. He smiled helplessly, but didn't say anything so as not to hurt Su Fong. Xian Lingzi took out a jade slip. There's no need to continue cultivating the earth condensation technique and the mountain driving technique. Inside this is one of the techniques that Grandpa cultivates, as well as the mantras and hand seals of the two divine abilities. In Kuin Su's divine sect, they can be considered top techniques and divine abilities. Take them and cultivate. If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask me. The techniques and divine abilities that Xian Lingzi praised so highly were naturally extraordinary. Of course, they couldn't compare to the 9 Yang 9 changes, the divine life, shrinking technique, or even Shu Yunkong's great Tao of time. However, Su Fong couldn't expose himself at this time. He had to master the techniques and divine abilities of the Earth Tao. Now that he had obtained Xian Lingzi's powerful techniques, he was naturally overjoyed. Chapter 1855. Su Fong returned to the palace in Xianling Dojo. He took out the jade scroll that Xian Lingzi gave him and poured magic power into it. The jade scroll immediately melted and turned into characters that merged into Su Fong's palm and entered Su Fong's consciousness. After merging the characters, Su Fong was pleasantly surprised. The cultivation method that Xian Lingzi had given him was called Heart of the Sea. From the name of the cultivation method, it seemed to be a cultivation method of the water Tao, but in fact it contained a kind of cultivation method of the earth Tao law. Heart of the Sea, using the heart of the sea to accommodate the nature of heaven and earth, was a very majestic technique. Although the speed of cultivation was not fast, the condensed divine essence was very stable and strong. The other two techniques were also evolved from the great Tao of earth. One was an attack technique, chaotic formless seal, and the other was a movement technique, earth ripple step. I have a primal chaos godhead and a mid-grade earth godhead. I cultivate the technique, heart of the sea, and master the chaotic formless seal and earth ripple step. Naturally, it is very easy for me to establish myself in Kuin Su. Having a grandpa who is the master of the dojo, this feeling is really good. And Ling Xiangmei. Thinking of Ling Xiangmei, Su Fong was speechless and smiled bitterly. After defeating Dongshan Wei, Ling Xiangmei did not fulfill her promise to give Su Fong the clothes that she wore. Of course, even if she did, Su Fong would not dare to accept it. What made Su Fong depressed was that the 10,000 divine jade treasures that he extorted from Dongshan Wei was taken away by Ling Xiangmei without any hesitation. She said that she was keeping it for Su Fong, to prevent Su Fong from fooling around with this huge sum of money. The techniques that Xian Lingzi gave me are only to solve my temporary needs. The focus of my cultivation is still the 9 Yang 9 changes, the life shrinking technique, the mysterious solution of heaven, and other supreme techniques and techniques. This is the foundation for me to walk to the peak of cultivation in the future. Su Fong sealed the palace and let Count Chong guard the palace gate. He created a formation to seal the quiet room, and then settled into a state of cultivation inside the quiet room. Only then did he enter the cavern of time. He separated the blood and water clones, cultivated all kinds of cultivation techniques, comprehended the heart mantras and hand seals of the divine arts. Demon Sage, Azure Feather, Yu Miaomei, Zhu Yin, and company, who had come with Su Fong to the myriad worlds, had yet to condense a divine body. They were unable to withstand the shackles of the myriad worlds' world power, so they could only stay in Su Fang's inner world to cultivate. Now that the Su Fang had temporarily established a foothold in the myriad worlds and had some resources in their hands, they began to think of ways to improve their strength. Demon Sage Azure Feather had obtained the Fey God's inheritance from the Fey race faction in the primordial Immortal Fiend battlefield. Furthermore, he had fused with a world fragment when he was in a great world. In Su Fang's inner world, he constantly absorbed the powers of the Yin-Yang world. With the inferior grade divine essence pills provided by Su Fang, his improvement speed was naturally extremely astonishing. Su Fang's in-name disciple, Zhu Yin, whom he had accepted in the primordial Immortal Fiend battlefield, had improved in astonishing speed under Su Fang's guidance. However, he was still thousands of miles away from reaching the God Realm. Ever since the myriad world's Dharma fragments had been gathered, Yu Miaomei had settled into a strange state. It was as if she had found her past memories. Most of her time was spent in the state of cultivating the ethereal enlightenment, and she rarely interacted with Su Fang. The undead king was trying to repair the myriad world's Dharma fragment. Su Fang was thinking that when he had a certain level of strength, he would capture a God Realm expert alive and let the undead king break through to the God Realm through a sacrificial ritual. After coming to the myriad worlds, everything had to start from scratch. Su Fang also planned to have the opportunity to suppress some slave experts and Big Goblin. He also wanted to find ways to improve the quality of his natal treasure, the Xinhuang Six Paths Pagoda, to reach the God Realm. About 1,000 years had passed in the Cavern of Time. About 100 years had passed in the outside world. Su Fang, who was in a state of cultivation, emitted a wave of tribulation aura from Su Fang's body. I'm finally going to break through. In Kuan Su's God Realm, Su Fang borrowed the pure aura of nature and the power of the world to reach the peak of the first heavenly layer of true God Realm. Su Fang used more than 1,000 years to break through the peak of the first heavenly layer and reach the second heavenly layer. In his eyes, it wasn't fast at all. Su Fang came out of the Cavern of Time and swallowed 10 low-grade God Essence pills. Then, he condensed his God Yuan and activated the pure Yang fire. The power of the pills, God Yuan, pure Yang fire, and tribulation aura fused together, forming a powerful aura that exploded from his body. Layers of familiar impurities seeped out from his body, and an incomparably stinky aura spread out. They were quickly burned to ashes by the pure Yang fire. He guided the power of ascension to engulf his body, causing it to undergo a transformation. His divine dwellings had also become even more illusory and vast. The star vortex had also become a size bigger, and the speed of its rotation had also increased. The Yang spirit in the divine aperture also underwent a transformation. It buzzed and trembled. The Yang spirit became a little taller, as if it was a corporeal existence. Its magic power also increased by a lot. Inside and outside his body, as well as the Cavern of Gods, divine aperture, and Yang spirit, there was an additional heaven mark. Second heavenly layer of true God. In the myriad worlds, a second heavenly layer of true God wasn't considered an expert. However, Su Fang had ascended to the myriad worlds for less than 500 years, and he had once again advanced to the second heavenly layer of true God realm. It had to be said that it was incomparably shocking. Next, Su Fang swallowed more pills and activated the Cavern of the Sea. At the same time, he also used the ethereal true record. In an instant, Su Fang's Cavern of Gods was like a boundless sea that could accommodate hundreds and thousands of rivers. The natural aura of heaven and earth within a radius of 100 feet was attracted by the two great techniques, sweeping over in a mighty manner. When an ordinary second heavenly layer of true God activated the Cavern of Gods, the natural aura of heaven and earth could be attracted to an area of 20 to 30 feet at most. Su Fang had reached 100 feet, and the scale was so vast. The total amount was more than 10 times that of an ordinary true God. This was the terrifying ability of Cavern of the Sea and ethereal true record to devour spiritual aura. Su Feng's speed of ascension was naturally incomparably shocking. When Su Feng's realm stabilized to the normal state of second heavenly layer of true God, another 50 years had passed. Cultivation had no concept of time, and it was even more so for the cultivation of true gods. It wasn't strange for them to go into seclusion for hundreds of thousands of years. With the cultivation of second heavenly layer of true God, I should have the strength to battle with a ninth heavenly layer of true God expert. If I display the giant diamond body, I can kill a ninth heavenly layer peak. Facing a first heavenly layer of celestial God expert, even if I can't win, I have the ability to protect myself. I treated Mo Yuntian as a stepping stone and agreed to challenge him 1,000 years later. 3,000 years later, I still have to challenge Fan Su. Now, nearly 300 years have passed. According to this speed of ascension, it's still far from enough. Law is right. Great dangers often contain equal opportunities. Only through repeated adventures and experience can one improve faster. Law is right. Great dangers often contain equal opportunities. Only through repeated adventures and experiences can one improve faster. I have to find an opportunity to go out and train. I have to sharpen myself in danger and quickly increase my strength. Su Feng began to prepare to go out and train, search for opportunities, and quickly increase his strength. Fenghua, come out. Xianlingzi suddenly came to the palace personally and transmitted his primordial spirit to Su Feng. Su Feng walked out of the palace and saw Xianlingzi with a serious face. He asked in surprise, "Grandpa, what happened?" Sanskrit's Mr. Fan Su brought people to Kuan Su Divine Sect and specifically asked to see you. I'm afraid there's a lot of trouble. You actually advanced to second heavenly layer of true God. At first, Xianlingzi was still deeply worried. Soon after, he saw Su Feng's aura and was immediately surprised and happy. Fenghua, I didn't expect your cultivation talent to be so shocking. Compared to those so-called geniuses, it's not inferior at all. Let's go, follow Grandpa to meet that Sanskrit's mister. Xianlingzi released a burst of divine might and brought Su Feng across the sky. Arriving at the peak of Kuan Su Divine Realm's giant mountain, they entered a palace that was specially used to receive important people. Fan Su was wearing a purple and gold robe. He looked extraordinarily heroic and noble. Accompanying Fan Su to Kuan Su Divine Sect was a Sanskrit old man. He had silver hair and an illusory aura. Compared to Kuan Su Divine Sect's leader, Master Kuan Su, his strength could only be higher and not lower. Kuan Su Divine Sect had a total of 5 elders under Master Kuan Su, as well as the siblings Xia Qijuan and Xia Yunji were all present. Xianlingzi sit. Seeing Xianlingzi come in, Master Kuan Su nodded and indicated for him to sit down in a corner. Fan Su glanced at Su Feng and raised the corner of his mouth, revealing a trace of a disdainful smile. Xia Qijuan didn't even look at Su Feng. Kuan Su Divine Sect Supreme Disciple's arrogance was completely revealed. However, his expression was dispirited. Although he wasn't beaten back to his original state, he was still far from recovering. As for Xia Yunji, she looked at Su Feng as if she was looking at a dead person. Looks like Fan Su didn't come with good intentions. Su Feng sneered in his heart and stood behind Xianlingzi. Master Kuan Su saw Su Feng's cultivation and couldn't help but be startled. A trace of surprise flashed in his deep eyes. He immediately said to Xianlingzi apologetically, "Xianlingzi, because Mo Fenghua and Yunji were young and ignorant, there was some unpleasantness. Therefore, the two's previous engagement is cancelled." Xianlingzi, do you have anything to say? Xianlingzi said indifferently, "I have nothing to say." He and Master Kuan Su had a close relationship, which was why he arranged the engagement between Mo Fenghua and Xia Yunji since they were young. Because of Xia Yunji, his grandson almost lost his life in the cloudy divine realm. Naturally, Xianlingzi's heart was filled with resentment. He also had complaints towards Master Kuan Su. Master Kuan Su continued, Sanskrit's young master Fan Su admires Yunji. This trip to Kuan Su's divine sect is to propose marriage. This lord has already agreed to the marriage alliance, and specially called the two of you here to be witnesses. Propose marriage? This adulterous couple. Su Fong felt Mo Fenghua's strong resentment surge in the depths of his consciousness. He also felt a strong sense of humiliation. A woman who had a previous engagement was now going to marry someone else, and even called him here to be a witness. This was simply a great humiliation. At this time, Fan Su said coldly, "This lord came this time not only to propose marriage, but also for another matter." Chapter 1856. This young Master Fan Su of the Brahma clan had made Mo Fenghua a cuckold. He beat Mo Fenghua up and then set up a trap to have the brothel girl suck Mo Fenghua's yang essence dry. She died in the most humiliating way. Even if she died, she would become the laughingstock of everyone. After giving Mo Fenghua such a great humiliation, Fan Su wasn't willing to let it go. This time, he even publicly came to Kuan Su's divine sect and Xianlingzi to demand an explanation. So arrogant, so domineering. Su Fong merged with Mo Fenghua's body and consciousness. Although he wasn't the coward and trash that had been humiliated in the past, he was still burning with anger. He clenched his fists, his fingernails digging deep into his palms and dripping with blood. "Fan Su, what explanation do you want?" Su Fong gnashed his teeth and said. The old man from Sanskrit coldly shouted, "How dare you? Who do you think you are? You dare to directly call the name of the Sanskrit young master?" A domineering aura swept out and pressed down on Su Fong. Xianlingzi exploded with a majestic aura that collided with the aura of the old man. With a boom, the seat under Xianlingzi shattered. His body swayed and finally dissolved the aura of the old man. The silver-haired old man had only casually released an aura, while Xianlingzi had used his full strength. The difference between the two could be clearly distinguished in an instant. Kuan Su's brows furrowed, and he said to the old man, "Elder Fan, this is Kuan Su's divine sect. Please give me some face." The old man disdainfully glanced at Xianlingzi and closed his eyes, no longer paying attention to Su Fong and Xianlingzi. Fan Su domineeringly said, "Mo Fenghua, I'll give Grandpa Yunji face and not bother about your previous offense. I'll treat your challenge as a joke. Kowtow to me 3 times, then destroy your own divine palace. In the future, you can peacefully be a trash that only knows how to eat and wait for death." Xianlingzi raised his white eyebrows, and his eyes shot out a sharp light. "Master Kuan," Su shook his head and said, "Young Master Fan Su, Xianling and I are close friends. Fenghua is his only grandson. I want to ask you for a favor. Considering that he is young and ignorant, challenging you is just an impulse. How can you take it seriously? Let him apologize to you, and you can forget about the matter of destroying his own divine abode." Fan Su cupped his fists and said, "This young master and concubine Yun are connected by marriage. The realm lord is my grandfather. How can I not obey your orders? Furthermore, Mo Fenghua is a piece of trash to begin with. It doesn't matter if he is crippled or not. However, one must show sincerity in apologizing." Xianlingzi looked at Su Fong and said in a low voice, "Fenghua, we will accept the humiliation this time. Who asked us to be inferior?" Su Fong walked to the center of the hall. Fan Su looked down at Su Fong, waiting for Su Fong to kneel down and admit his mistake. Xia Yunji revealed an arrogant and proud expression. She was very happy. As for the others, they didn't take it seriously. In their view, this kind of thing was very common. In a myriad worlds, without strength and power, what was a bit of humiliation? Fan Su. Su Fong stretched out his right hand. His palms suddenly shattered, and a mass of blood gushed out and condensed into a blood bead. Everyone was stunned. Xianlingzi suddenly thought of something and shouted, "Fenghua, you're crazy. Stop it." Su Fong pointed to the sky and said loudly, "I, Mo Fenghua, hereby make a blood oath to the heavenly Tao. 3,000 years later, I will challenge Fan Su and use his blood to wash away the humiliation he gave me. Once the blood oath is made, I will not rest until death. The heavenly Tao is my witness. 1. Su Fang's voice seemed to have received the approval of the heavenly Tao. A heavenly Tao aura descended from the void and enveloped the blood bead. Then, it turned into a blood light and suddenly drilled into Fan Su's forehead. Blood Oath Battle Contract. It was an ancient oath that existed in the ancient era. It was also a blood curse ability. Not only did it exist in the greater worlds, it also existed in the myriad worlds. This ability didn't have any offensive capabilities. Instead, it used one's life force to make an oath to the heavenly Tao to challenge the enemy. Once the blood oath was made, it could only be removed if one party died. Of course, the party being challenged could choose not to accept the challenge. In this way, the blood oath battle contract would naturally not be established. In the myriad worlds, it was extremely rare to use a blood oath battle contract to challenge the enemy. Most of the time, it was done when one was forced into a desperate situation. Everyone in the hall was surprised and shocked. Previously, when Su Fang divorced Xia Yunji and threatened to challenge Fan Su, everyone thought it was because of Mo Fenghua's hedonistic personality. No one took his stupid words seriously. They didn't expect him to propose a blood oath battle contract now. Only then did they realize that he wasn't stupid, but was serious. Kuan Su couldn't help but look at Su Fang in a new light. They didn't expect this idiot to have a brave side. Xia Qijuan and Xia Yunji naturally snorted disdainfully. As for Xianlingzi, his face was pale and his eyes were filled with despair. Fan Su chuckled. Although killing a piece of trash will tarnish my reputation, since you're looking for death, I'll grant you your wish. I'll give you the right to challenge. I'll accept your blood oath battle contract. 3,000 years later, I'll respectfully await your challenge. Furthermore, I'll guarantee that you'll live well for the next 3,000 years, so as to prevent others from gossiping about me. Grandfather, let's go, Su Fang said to Xianlingzi. Xianlingzi helplessly sighed and left with Su Fang, returning to Xianling Palace. Xianlingzi sighed. Fenghua, you're really too sigh. Su Fang knew that it would be difficult to convince Xianlingzi, so he didn't say anything more. Since things had already reached this point, Xianlingzi couldn't change anything. After returning to the palace, I challenged Fan Su not only to wash away Mo Fenghua's shame, but I also have my own intentions. I can't always be a piece of trash in Kuan Su's divine sect. In order to participate in the Kimiko Hoshino competition, I must quickly become a genius that Kuan Su's divine sect values. Mo Fenghua's reputation as a wastrel and a piece of trash has already been deeply ingrained in people's hearts. If I grow too quickly, it will definitely arouse some suspicions. When people are forced into a desperate situation, they can often explode with great potential. Mo Fenghua, this piece of trash, facing a life and death threat, explodes with potential and turns from a piece of trash into a genius. This is easier for people to accept. Everyone thinks that I'm overestimating myself. How would they know that I'm only using Fan Su as a stepping stone to help my reputation? Su Fang confidently smiled. Let's put Fan Su's matter aside for now. It's time to find a way to train. Su Fang pondered for a while, then called for Uncle Chong. Go spread a message for this young master. The news of Su Fang establishing a blood oath and challenging Fan Su spread throughout Kuan Su's divine sect on the same day. It immediately caused a huge commotion. The commotion was more than 10 times greater than when Su Fang defeated Dong Shanwei. Even the marriage between Fan Su and Xia Yunji was greatly diluted by this news. People naturally scoffed at Su Fang's challenge. However, because of this matter, people still had a whole new level of respect for Mo Fenghua. At least in their hearts, he was no longer a weak and useless piece of trash. At least, he still had some guts. The next piece of news caused another huge commotion. This piece of news was spread by Mo Fenghua. He was going to set up an arena in Kuan Su's divine sect and accept the challenges of any official disciple. Furthermore, he had set up a gambling house. Every battle would cost 100 pieces of divine jade treasure. all of the official disciples of Kun Su's divine sect were immediately ignited like oil. Of course, they weren't aiming for the divine jade treasure. Who was Mo Fenghua? He was a bastard who stole female disciples' underwear and played with female disciples. He was the public enemy of Kun Su's divine sect disciples. If they defeated him, not only would they obtain divine jades, they would also gain fame and the favor of countless female disciples. There were even many female disciples who spread the word that as long as they defeated Mo Fenghua, they would repay him with their bodies. Furthermore, Mo Fenghua was a famous idiot, a piece of trash. In the eyes of the official disciples, he was a living weakling. As for his battle record of defeating Dong Shanwei, no one cared. Dong Shanwei was nothing more than a silk pants. His cultivation was built up by relying on the Dong Shanwei clan's resources. How could he compare to an official disciple? With such a generous reward and a weak opponent, how could those official disciples not scramble like ducks? There were also people who were secretly plotting to kill Su Fong in a battle. Did this piece of trash eat the wrong medicine? Or did he think he was some kind of absolute genius after defeating Dong Shanwei? First, he used a blood oath to challenge Fan Su, then challenged all of the official disciples. When Mo Yuntian received this news, he was both shocked and stunned. Previously, Mo Yuntian had secretly arranged for Kun Su's Divine Nation Emperor and numerous female disciples to frame Mo Fenghua in the punishment hall. In the end, it caused Kun Su's Divine Nation Emperor to change hands. Over 100 female disciples had their divine palaces destroyed and were expelled from divine sect. After that, the punishment hall conducted a strict investigation and finally found several core disciples who were all carefully nurtured by Mo Yuntian. These core disciples were all heavily punished by the punishment hall. However, they did not expose Mo Yuntian, allowing him to escape this calamity. After witnessing Su Fong crushing Dong Shanwei, fusing with a mid-grade Earth rank godhead, and advancing to the second sky of true God, Mo Yuntian not only felt that the position of Xianling Dojo's young master was hopeless, he even felt an enormous threat. This time, he finally grasped the opportunity with great difficulty. How could Mo Yuntian possibly sit still? Mo Fenghua, you're courting death. Mo Yuntian made arrangements and secretly arranged for some experts among the official disciples of other dojos to challenge Su Fong. Then, they would try to accidentally kill Su Fong in a battle. Dong Shanwei, who was anxious to take revenge on Su Fong, naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity. Unlike Mo Yuntian, Dong Shanwei publicly offered a reward. Anyone who could heavily injure Mo Fenghua in a battle would be rewarded with a mid-grade divine artifact. Anyone who killed Mo Fenghua would be rewarded with a high-grade divine artifact. With this, all of the official disciples' battle intent once again burned to a new height. Some core disciples, and even some special disciples, were endlessly envious. They only hated that they didn't meet the challenge conditions. Chapter 1857. Mo Fenghua, I, Choji, challenge you. Mo Fenghua, I challenge you on behalf of those female disciples whose undergarments you stole. After one disciple after another arrived at Profound Tomb Bodhidharma, they loudly challenged Su Fong, then fired out jade slips, flying towards the palace that Su Fong resided in. The massive palace was virtually drowned out by the densely packed jade slips. In a short 3 days' time, the challenged jade slips that Count Chong collected were as many as 50,000, fully filling 3 storage rings. With so many challengers, it made Count Chong, a 9th firmament celestial deity realm expert, feel his scalp tingle too. Su Fong was also not surprised and said with a chuckle, I didn't expect that I actually possess such astonishing rallying power. Count Chong smiled helplessly and bitterly. How was this rallying power? It was clearly that young master was too hateful. Count Chong naturally did not dare to say the truth and urged, young master, why not find an excuse to cancel the challenge? There's seriously too many people. What if something bad happens and young master is hurt? What should we do then? Cancel? With such a sparring partner and even divine jade to get, where can one find such a good thing? How can it be cancelled? Su Fong directly made Count Chong choose an opponent from the jade slips. 10 days later, the number of challengers broke through 100,000. This was still just a small portion of them. The majority of the people were still observing. On the day of the scheduled challenge, Su Fong brought Count Chong to the life and death arena. In the plaza where the life and death arena was located, the spatial array formation was activated to the limit. In layers of folded space, there were no less than 1,000,000 disciples gathered. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Countless gazes landed on Su Fong, making Su Fong feel tremendous pressure. His scalp tingled, a layer of cold sweat seeped out of his back, feeling like a sheep that entered a pack of wolves. The numbers were seriously too many. The punishment hall specially dispatched an enforcement elder and 1,000 enforcement disciples for this, specially maintaining order. Otherwise, once the situation got out of control, there would be a huge mess. Su Fong controlled an ungraded flying sword and flew shakily onto the life and death platform. With his current second firmament true god cultivation base, coupled with purple chi law spirit, controlling an ungraded flying sword was originally a breeze. However, being locked onto by so many covetous gazes, even a transcending heaven deity realm expert would also feel uncomfortable all over, let alone Su Fong. Even flying on the sword is difficult. With such strength, how could he defeat Dongshan Wei? It can only mean that Dongshan Wei is too useless. Perhaps Mo Fenghua is hiding her strength, but so what? With so many people, he'll definitely die. This scene once again proved that Su Fong was a weakling that couldn't be any weaker. On the life and death arena, the law enforcement elder looked at Su Fong and frowned. "Young master, what are you trying to do? Hurry up and cancel the challenge. If an accident happens, this seat won't be able to bear the responsibility." The law enforcement elder and many other enforcement disciples were also very dissatisfied with Su Fong. This trash was simply too good at causing trouble. Creating such a huge commotion, it simply became a golden age for the Koan Su divine sect. If I announce that I'm canceling the challenge now, I'm afraid that these people will tear me apart, right? Su Fong's very helpless appearance made the law enforcement elder so angry that he coldly snorted. He sat down cross-legged on the life and death arena and no longer said anything. What Su Fong said was the truth. If the challenge was canceled now, the situation would really go out of control. Su Fong narrowed his eyes, his gaze sweeping across the dark crowd. He licked his lips and revealed a regretful expression. With so many people, if each person wins 100 divine jades, how much money would that be? It's a pity that I can't challenge everyone. Su Fong sighed in his heart. Everyone. As soon as Su Fong opened his mouth, the noisy square gradually quieted down. Many thanks to everyone for giving this young master face. So many people responded to this young master, and so many people came to support this young master today. Su Fong cupped his fists towards the crowd. Hua! A burst of ridicule and abuse erupted from the crowd. This trash, this dandy, really knew how to be funny. Give him face? With so many people gathered, did they think that he was a weakling? How many people would give him face when they saw him being wildly abused or even killed? Because there are too many challengers, this young master can't accept all of them. Therefore, this young master has decided that every official disciple who challenges me must pay 100 divine jades before going on stage. And from tomorrow onwards, every disciple who comes to watch the battle must pay a divine jades. Su Fong's words once again caused a burst of angry curses from below the stage. Su Fong continued, I don't want a single cent of this money. I'll hand it all over to the punishment hall as a reward for the hard work of the law enforcement elder and the disciples. Only then did the crowd quiet down. Who would dare to offend someone from the punishment hall? The law enforcement elder's eyes lit up, and the gaze he looked at Su Fong with instantly became much gentler. Those law enforcement disciples who were originally full of complaints immediately became spirited. They originally thought that it would be a hard job, but they didn't expect it to be such a lucrative one. In their hearts, Mo Fenghua was no longer a trash who provoked hatred, but a god of wealth who understood the big picture and was practical. Just like this, Su Fong took everyone's money and completely bought over the punishment hall. Su Fong continued in a loud voice. The wager for those who challenge me has also increased from 100 divine jades to 1,000. If you defeat me, you can get 1,000 divine jades. If you lose, I'll naturally happily pay 1,000 divine jades. This trash has simply fallen into the trap of money. Defeat him. Even if you lose, you'll still lose to him. Everyone was completely enraged by Su Fong, and their emotions were all aroused. The challenge begins now. Su Fong took out a storage ring and poured in a stream of magic power. Countless jade slips floated out from the storage ring. Su Fong casually took out a jade slip from the storage ring. The first challenger, Min Yuanzheng. The crowd was silent for a moment. A disciple cried out in wild joy. "It's actually me. I actually have such luck. Ha ha." Everyone looked at this lucky guy in unison, and they were all endlessly envious. That disciple called Min Yuanzheng jumped onto the life and death ring, impatient to begin. A law enforcement disciple on the ring said coldly, "Pay 100 divine jades as the challenge fee, as well as 1,000 divine jades as the wager." After Min Yuanzheng paid the fee and the wager, the law enforcement elder said majestically, "One side admits defeat. Immediately end the battle. You're not allowed to intentionally injure others. Begin." Mountain suppressing fist. Min Yuanzheng's feet stomped fiercely on the life and death ring. A majestic and heavy aura was guided by him, borrowing the power of the earth and pouncing straight at Su Fong. This official disciple's strength was not ordinary, reaching the height of a fifth firmament true god. Furthermore, his divine ability was also very extraordinary. Boom! Su Fong used his divine ability, mountain driving art, and condensed 5 mountain phantoms around him. He punched out, and the two's fist arts collided. It was as if 2 mountains collided. Min Yuanjing's body was sent flying, landing off the ring, and smashing into a group of spectating disciples, causing a commotion. What vigorous divine essence! The law enforcement elder's eyes lit up. Su Fong relied on incomparably vigorous divine essence to be able to defeat the fifth firmament true god Min Yuanzheng with a trash divine ability like mountain driving art with his cultivation at the second firmament true god realm. A second firmament true god realm's divine essence was actually more vigorous than a fifth firmament true god realm. It was simply somewhat inconceivable. However, the law enforcement elder knew that Mo Fenghua's divine essence was middle-grade earth rank, so he was not too moved or shocked. Such a quality of divine essence was very rare even among Kuan Su divine sect special disciples. The higher the quality of the divine essence, the wider the divine abode opened when advancing to true God. The more vigorous the divine essence, the stronger the power of the divine ability unleashed. The crowd below the ring was in an uproar as they all cursed Min Yuanzheng as a trash. Although Min Yuanzheng was not injured, he was nearly drowned by the crowd's spit. After leaving the plaza in a sorry state, it would be hard for him to raise his head in Kuan Su divine sect in the future. With 1,000 divine jades in hand, Su Fong was overjoyed. He immediately took out another jade strip. Next, Gongliangzhe. The opponent this time had extraordinary strength, reaching the height of peak fifth firmament true god realm. Furthermore, he possessed an extremely powerful low-grade flying sword, causing quite a bit of trouble for Su Fong. Su Fong used mountain driving art, condensing 7 mountain phantoms, and fought fiercely with Gongliangzhe for nearly an hour. In the end, his opponent exhausted his divine essence and had no choice but to admit defeat. After witnessing Su Fong's strength, the crowd finally realized that the current Mo Fenghua was no longer an idiot and trash. Instead, he possessed the powerful strength to surpass realms and defeat opponents. Su Fong sat cross-legged on the ring and swallowed elixirs. After half an incense stick's worth of time, he recovered to his peak state. He then took out another jade strip. Next, just like this, Su Fong consecutively accepted challenges, followed by Lin Zhan defeating 7 opponents. His momentum was unstoppable. The crowd below the ring gradually quieted down. The crowd finally realized that being chosen by Mo Fenghua was not a lucky thing. The chosen challengers were no longer wild with joy like before. However, the strongest opponent Su Fong chose was only peak 5th firmament true god realm. The true experts among the official disciples did not make a move. At most, the crowd no longer thought that he was trash, but they definitely did not think that he had the strength to defeat all the official disciples. Zhong Hong won. After Su Fong chose another opponent, the crowd immediately became spirited. Zhong Hongwen had a little fame among the official disciples. His strength had reached 6th firmament true god realm, and he possessed a middle-grade divine artifact. He once had the battle record of defeating an 8th firmament true god realm expert. Zhong Hongwen flew onto the life and death ring and said smugly, "Mo Fenghua, I have to say that everyone has underestimated you. However, you chose me, so you have no chance of winning. While I'm most proficient in his defense. No matter how robust your divine essence is, you will be exhausted to death by me in the end. My time is very precious. If you say another word of nonsense, get lost immediately." Su Fong raised his eyebrows. His time was indeed very precious. Defeating a challenger meant obtaining 1,000 divine jades. If every challenger was like this Zhong Hongwen, then his loss would be huge. Arrogant, Zhong Hongwen shouted angrily. His divine body immediately underwent a shocking transformation. His skin became as hard as rock. Then he opened his mouth and spat out a shield-shaped divine artifact, which floated and rotated slowly beside him. Chapter 1858. Boom, boom. Su Fong unleashed the art of mountain taming to the extreme, conjuring 9 illusory mountain peaks to confront Zhong Hongwen. Read 6 books is not equal to Zhong Hongwen used a defensive divine ability. His entire body was like a rock covered with sharp edges. In addition to that shield-shaped divine artifact, it constantly released a thick and majestic protective divine might. Su Fong's astonishing attack, which was enough to crush an ordinary 8th firmament true god, was actually unable to break through his defense. It only shook him until he repeatedly retreated. When Su Fong was at the first heaven, he was able to break Dongshan Wei's Dongshan Town divine seal. At this time, he advanced to 2nd firmament true god and executed the mountain driving art at full power, but it was actually hard to break through Zhong Hongwen's defense. It could be seen how astonishing this person's defensive ability was, worthy of being an expert who had once defeated an 8th firmament true god. However, the astonishing attack that Su Fong displayed also shocked everyone to the core. Some disciples judged that Su Fong currently possessed the strength to contend with an 8th firmament true god expert. This kind of strength was very common among the tens of millions of official disciples. But Su Fong's cultivation was only 2nd firmament. Crossing realms to contend with an 8th firmament, such a huge leap was truly somewhat shocking. Some of the official disciples who were prepared to challenge Su Fong began to retreat. Mo Fenghua, you're only at the 2nd celestial layer, yet you're able to force me to use my strongest defense. This is simply shocking. If I don't defeat you, how can I, Zhong Hongwen, face anyone in Kuin Su Divine Sect in the future? Zhong Hongwen began his fierce counterattack. Boom, boom. Zhong Hongwen took large strides forward. Every time his foot landed on the ground, a yellow halo would appear beneath his feet. At the same time, it set off a violent wave. It actually caused the huge mountain Kuin Su to fluctuate mysteriously, forming a terrifying attack. Terrifying vibrations and distorted divine might swept out. Su Fong staggered, feeling dizzy. A shockwave had ignored his physical defenses and directly damaged his internal organs and divine dwellings. Blood flowed out from his 7 orifices. It was a ghastly sight. Zhong Hongwen was very proud of himself. He took advantage of the situation to crush Su Fong, forcing him to retreat again and again. Elder of Law Enforcement said loudly, Mo Fenghua, why haven't you admitted defeat yet? Admit defeat? Su Fong staggered from the shock of the shockwave and almost fell to the ground. However, he sneered disdainfully. Chaotic Kuan, formless seal. Su Fong suddenly made a strange hand seal. A burst of aura caused the gravity on the life and death arena to undergo a strange change. One moment, it became incomparably heavy, making it difficult for people to stand. The next moment, it became weightless, making it possible for people to float off the ground with just a bit of effort. Chaotic Kuan, formless seal. The law-enforcing patriarch's expression changed slightly, and a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. A law enforcement disciple asked curiously, "The chaotic earth formless seal is Elder Xianling's famous ability. It's a top-tier ability in the Kuan Su divine sect. Mo Fenghua is doted on by Elder Xianling. What's so strange about her being able to use the chaotic earth formless seal? What do you know? What was Xianling's strength? What was Mo Fenghua's strength? Right now, he's using at least 30% of the chaotic earth formless seal's power. How long has it been since he became a true god? Even if he pierced through the heavens, he's only cultivated for a few hundred years. How shocking is his comprehension of the great Tao of earth, as well as his control of the earth force of nature." The law-enforcing patriarch's words caused the law enforcement disciples' eyes to be filled with shock. As Su Fong used the chaotic earth formless seal, the gravity field in the space became chaotic. No matter how strong Zhong Hongwen's defense was, it was useless. The shield divine, tool hovering around his body, also lost its use. Even the Earth's vibration caused by his ability became chaotic and difficult to control. Poof! A terrifying gravity caused Zhong Hongwen to stagger. The next moment, his body suddenly became weightless. Zhong Hongwen's divine body couldn't withstand the huge difference in gravity. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. "I admit defeat. I admit defeat." At this point, Zhong Hongwen had no choice but to admit defeat. He was swept out of the life and death arena by the law-enforcing patriarch. This boy can be called a genius. Looking at the unbearably weary Su Fong, the law-enforcing patriarch was shocked in his heart. The gaze that the law-enforcing patriarch looked at Su Fong with was already completely different from before. He said with concern, "Mo Fenghua, your exhaustion is too great. Why don't we stop here today?" "No worries, disciple can still persist." Su Fong rejected the law-enforcing patriarch's good intentions and took out a jade slip again. The opponent that Su Fong picked this time was an official disciple whose cultivation reached the 7th firmament true god realm. He was defeated by him using mountain driving art combined with the chaotic earth formless seal. After defeating this person, Su Fong consumed 10 low-grade divine essence pills and closed his eyes for a moment. After that, he suddenly opened his eyes and said, "Fight again, next." One official disciple after another collapsed on the life and death arena. Each time, Su Fong looked like an arrow at the end of its flight. However, he would always persist until the end, all the way until the challenger admitted defeat. On Su Fong's body, Mo Fenghua's silk pants aura was still there, but there was an additional heroic spirit, an unstoppable domineering aura, and a shocking determination. Everyone was incomparably shocked. The trash and idiot image that Mo Fenghua gave people in the past had long disappeared. Instead, it made many people feel deep veneration for him. Everyone also saw Su Fong's goal. Other than seizing the opportunity to amass wealth, he also used all the challengers as whetstones, using these official disciples to sharpen his edge. In the past, I thought that Mo Fenghua was a useless silk pants. I didn't expect this boy's cultivation talent and wisdom to be so extraordinary. He also has an incomparably tenacious cultivator's heart. Such a person will rise in the future. The law-enforcing patriarch had a whole new level of respect for Su Fong. Then, he sighed with emotion again. Xianlingzi should thank Sanskrit. If not for being humiliated by Sanskrit's young master fan Su, Mo Fenghua would still be muddle-headedly living the life of a silk pants young master. Xia Yunji, or even the leader, will regret it sooner or later. in the crowd. Seeing one disciple after another being defeated by Su Fong, Dong Shanwei's eyes were filled with resentment. These pieces of trash. Not a single one of them was able to obtain the sky-high reward I offered. Instead, it helped this piece of trash's reputation. Then, he sneered disdainfully. Mo Fenghua, today is only the first day. I'll let you be proud for a while. I'll let you climb high, then let you fall to pieces. Who would have thought that the salted fish Mo Fenghua would make such a huge comeback? Mo Fenghua felt a huge threat from Su Fong. His elegant face was filled with seriousness. Then, Mo Fenghua secretly transmitted his voice through his Yuan spirit. Fuze, are you confident? Mo Yuntian, are you planning to humiliate me? I, Fuze, am ranked in the top 10 among the official disciples. I'm about to become a core disciple. If I can't even defeat Mo Fenghua, then wouldn't it be a humiliation to me? Not far from Mo Fenghua, a young disciple with deep blue eyes sneered. Looks like I'm a bit impatient. Mo Yuntian laughed involuntarily. Then, he warned worriedly, what I want isn't to defeat Mo Fenghua, but to turn him into a real piece of trash. Or even kill him. Becoming a core disciple isn't enough. I want to become a nominated special disciple. As you wish. 3 days later, Su Fong finished his challenges. 51 official disciples had been defeated by his hands. This also meant that he had obtained over 50,000 divine jade treasures. Moreover, after going through continuous fierce battles and surpassing the limits of what he could endure time and time again, his cultivation base, mastery of divine abilities, and experience in fights of magical power had unknowingly undergone a transformation. Although the challengers Su Fong chose were all below the 7th firmament of true God realm, such a battle record was incomparably shocking. It made many challengers start to retreat. We'll fight again in a month. Do you dare? Su Fong's domineering and arrogant voice reverberated in the plaza. Many official disciples were once again enraged by Su Fong. They all rubbed their fists, waiting to challenge Su Fong in a month. Returning to Xianling Dojo's temporary residence, Su Fong came to the quiet room and immediately entered the time and space immortal's abode. After forming a seal, his fleshly body collapsed, turning into blood water with an area of over 100 feet. Over a dozen divine essence recovery and blood energy medicinal pills fell into the blood water and were rapidly melted by the blood water. After experiencing 3 days of great battles, Su Fong was like a sponge that had its last trace of water squeezed dry. He frenziedly swallowed the medicinal pill's power. The speed at which his cultivation increased was also incomparably shocking. From the normal 2nd firmament of true God realm state, it rapidly climbed towards the peak. A month's time passed in the blink of an eye. Su Fong appeared on the life and death arena once again. The plaza where the life and death arena was located was still packed with people. Not only official disciples, some core disciples and special disciples were also attracted by Su Fong's previous performance. Xianling Zi also quietly arrived in the crowd under the accompaniment of Xianling Dojo's upper echelons. Kong Yuan, an 8th firmament of true God official disciple, was very luckily picked by Su Fong. Boom! Su Fong used to have some difficulty dealing with an 8th firmament of true God realm immortal. After a month of seclusion, at this time, it was actually difficult to withstand Su Fong's attacks for an incense stick's time. Su Fong activated the mountain controlling art and directly sent him flying out of the life and death arena. Not only did his cultivation increase, Su Fong's control of the mountain controlling art and the chaotic earth formless seal became more proficient. He could use them as he pleased. There was a sudden silence below the arena. Originally, after holding back for a month, most of the challengers below the arena who were eager to give it a try revealed timid expressions. Who are you? Su Fong once again picked a challenger, who knew that the official disciple who was called by Su Fong did not react for a long time. Su Fong's eyebrows furrowed, slightly activating the Heaven Secret Life shrinking technique, using the jade slip as the source to sense this person's aura. Come out. Su Fang's eyes looked towards the dark crowd, his sharp gaze falling on a disciple. Everyone was surprised. There were more than 1,000,000 disciples watching the battle in the square. Su Fang was actually able to find Hu Yu in such a large crowd. His sensing ability was so strong that even heavenly god experts were left in the dust. How could the crowd not be surprised? That disciple named Hu Yu shouted loudly, "I give up the challenge." Give up? Chapter 1859. You all thought I was a weak chicken and came to challenge me one by one. Now that you know I'm not to be trifled with, you all want to give up? How can there be such a good thing in this world? Besides, I still need to rely on you all to make a fortune. If you all give up, where will I get my fortune from? Su Fang showed his domineering and strong side at this time. Of course you can give up, but you have to hand over 1,000 divine jades. Hu Yu sneered. I didn't lose to you. Why should I give you 1,000 divine jades? Mo Fenghua, you can be arrogant in Xianling Training Hall, but I'm not a disciple of Xianling Training Hall. What qualifications do you have to be arrogant in front of me? I won't give it. What can you do to me? You want to renege? I, Mo Fenghua, can renege on other people's debts, but if others want to renege on mine, don't even think about it. Su Fang smiled domineeringly. Then he cupped his fists at the disciplinary elder and said, Punishment Hall, please uphold justice for this disciple. There were more than 1,000,000 disciples present, and each of them had to pay a divine jades as compensation for the Punishment Hall's hard work. Punishment Hall had earned 1,000,000 divine jades today. Such a huge sum of money was all obtained by Su Fang. Money makes the world go round. Under the powerful attack of the divine jades, how could the disciplinary elder not speak up for Su Fang? Since you've issued a challenge, you must fulfill the agreement. Otherwise, you'll go back on your word and be severely punished by Punishment Hall. The disciplinary elder said majestically. Immediately, 2 disciplinary disciples flew above Hu Yu, and one of them coldly shouted, Are you going to hand over the money, or come with us to Punishment Hall? I challenge. Hu Yu gritted his teeth and said, For an official disciple, 1,000 divine jades was not a small sum. Since he had to hand over the money, he might as well give it a try. Who knows, he might have a chance to defeat Su Fang. Hu Yu jumped onto the life and death arena. Boom, boom, boom. Su Fang first used the chaotic earth seal to release a terrifying gravity to shackle Hu Yu, then used the mountain controlling art to attack Hu Yu savagely and violently. Hu Yu held on for a dozen breaths before he was completely crushed. Su Fang did not hold back either, and beat Hu Yu to a miserable state. In the end, he had no choice but to admit defeat and obediently take out 1,000 divine jades. Now, not only had he lost 1,000 divine jades, he'd even been brutally humiliated in public, and it was too late for Hu Yu to regret it. If he'd known earlier, then he would have directly taken out the money. Why did he have to go through so much trouble? With another 1,000 divine jades in hand, Su Fang was overjoyed. He shouted, Who else is willing to give up? Just hand over the money. I, Mo Fenghua, will not make things difficult for him. There were a total of 100,000 official disciples challenging him. If each of them were to hand over 1,000 divine jades, that would be a huge sum of money. Su Fang naturally hoped that everyone would give up so that they wouldn't have to waste a lot of effort. No one below the stage responded. Su Fang took out several jade slips from his storage ring, and they floated in front of him as he said coldly and embarrassedly, Don't think that it's difficult for me to challenge all of you one by one because there are so many of you. I'll ask the Punishment Hall to come out and visit all of you one by one. At that time, it won't be as simple as 1,000 divine jades. The official disciples who were rushing to challenge Su Fang a month ago all had ugly expressions on their faces. Someone in the crowd shouted in dissatisfaction. Back then, you offered 100 divine jades as a bet, but now it's become 1,000 divine jades. This is clearly extortion and extortion. How can we accept this? Others began to shout. Fine, 100 it is. If you want to give up the challenge now, then just admit defeat and hand over 100 divine jades. Su Fang also knew that it was difficult to provoke public anger. If these official disciples were really forced into a corner, it would be difficult for him to resist. Immediately, Many challengers paid 100 divine jades to the enforcement disciples. More than 2 hours later, Su Fong had more than 5 million divine jades in his hands. There were also some challengers who were obviously still hoping for a fluke, or had other thoughts, and would not easily take out the money. 5 million divine jades was an extremely shocking amount. Such a huge sum was almost equivalent to the entire wealth of a special disciple. Everyone's eyes were red with envy. Xian Lingzi, who was hiding in the crowd, was very pleased when he saw this scene. He smiled at Ling Xiangmei and the other higher-ups of the dojo. Not only is my grandson's cultivation talent outstanding, but his ability to earn money is also unmatched. Kuan Su has 18 dojos of the divine sect, and there are countless geniuses. Which one of them can compare to him? I've really underestimated him before. To think that he has such ability, haha. Elder Qi and the other higher-ups of the Xian Ling dojo all smiled bitterly. Mo Fenghua was clearly bribing the punishment hall and wantonly extorting the disciples. Xian Lingzi did not stop him, but was instead pleased with himself. Spoiling his grandson to such an extent was simply outrageous. This brat, I didn't expect him to be so two-faced. Humph, he stole my undergarments. It's only right for him to give me some divine jades. Ling Xiaomei's thoughts moved as she planned to get some money from Su Fong. Of course, she wouldn't take it for free. When the time comes, she would just give him some undergarments. Just as Su Fong was about to choose the next challenger, a disciple leapt onto the life and death stage. Clear Moon Dojo, disciple Fu Yi challenges you. The crowd below the stage immediately became restless. From the crowd's whispers, Su Fong understood that this disciple, named Fu Yi's cultivation, had reached the peak of the ninth heaven of true God realm. His identity was an official disciple of the Clear Moon Dojo, one of the 18 dojos of the Kuan Su divine sect. However, Fu Yi was about to be promoted to a core disciple. Among the tens of millions of official disciples of the Kuan Su divine sect, he could definitely be ranked within the top 100. He could be considered a genius. The true test has finally come. Su Fong's spirit became hale and hearty. This time, he publicly challenged the official disciples. Earning money was secondary. His main goal was to challenge experts and continuously surpass his own limits to rapidly increase his strength. In addition, Su Fong wanted to use his victories to spread his name throughout the Kuan Su divine sect and attract the attention of the upper echelons of the divine sect. In the end, he would logically obtain the qualifications to participate in the Kimiko Hoshino struggle. Although the previous challengers had brought enormous pressure to Su Fong, it was far from enough. Now, there was finally an expert. In the crowd, Dongshan Wei's proud and arrogant voice rang out. Mo Fenghua, didn't you arrogantly want to challenge all the official disciples? This young master has specially fulfilled your wish and arranged 100 experts like Fu Yi for you. You can slowly enjoy it. What this young master has is money. This time, I'll use money to smash you to death and torture you 100 times. Let's see if you still dare to be arrogant in front of this young master. Dongshan Wei, last time, Elder Dongshan gave me 10,000 godly jades. I didn't expect you to take the initiative to give me money again. 100 people, 1,000 godly jades each. That's 100,000 godly jades. You're much more generous than your father. Many thanks. Su Fong sincerely cupped his fists and thanked Dongshan Wei. Dongshan Wei flew into a rage and coldly shouted at Fu Yi. Beat him to death. Although it's an unfair victory for Dongshan Wei's middle-grade divine artifact, I can only wrong myself. Fu Yi looked at Su Fong and sneered disdainfully. Mountain Sea Art. After Fu Yi formed a seal, a large number of mysterious patterns condensed into a mountain pattern on his divine body. Then, an incomparably majestic aura burst out of his body. His palms violently pushed towards Su Fong. Boom, boom, boom. A torrential aura swept out and turned into layers of overlapping mountains. Like a tsunami, it rolled towards Su Fong. It looked like an ocean formed by countless overlapping mountains. The aura was surging and incomparably majestic. The enforcement elder loudly warned, Mo Fenghua, be careful. This is the divine sex, famous mountain sea art. It could transform mountains into seas and crush everything. Fu Yi has already grasped more than 40% of the mountain sea art's essence. He can fight against heavenly god experts. He's definitely not someone you can contend against with your current strength. A terrifying, crushing force swept over. Su Fong felt his body being shackled and was about to be crushed into powder in an instant. Great Earth Wave Stomp. Su Fong's divine light instantly changed. Circulating his divine origin, his right foot fiercely stomped on the ground. A wave-like earthy, yellow Xian Guang swept out and pushed his body out of the shackles and shot backwards. Earth Wave Stomp was a movement divine ability given to him by Xian Lingzi. When cultivated to the extreme, he could borrow the power of the earth and teleport 10,000 miles in a single step. At this moment, Su Fong executed Earth Wave Stomp. Although it couldn't reach 10,000 miles in a single step, it could reach 100 miles in a single step. However, due to the shackles of the Fu Yi divine ability, Su Fong could only teleport 10 miles away. The Life and Death Ring was actually created by a supreme divine ability. It looked like it was only 100 feet in size, but in reality, it was formed by folding layers of space. When extended, it was 10,000 miles in space. Su Fong teleported 10 miles and was still within the Life and Death Ring space. Boom! Su Fong had just stabilized his body when Fu Yi's majestic aura swept over. The impact fiercely collided with his body, causing him to involuntarily spit out a mouthful of blood. Under Fu Yi's crushing pressure, Su Fong retreated step by step. If he hadn't grasped Earth Wave Stomp, he would have already lost to Fu Yi. Fu Yi's cultivation was at the peak of the ninth firmament true god realm, and he also grasped a powerful divine ability like the mountain sea art. He had already surpassed Su Fong's strength limit. Su Fong was injured time and time again, and he continuously swallowed medicinal pills to rapidly recover. After bitterly holding on for more than 2 hours, he was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Crush this trash to death for this young master. Dong Shanwei hooted loudly, very arrogant. The numerous official disciples below the ring followed and cheered loudly. Each and every one of them held their heads high, feeling very pleased. Kneel for me. Fu Yi suddenly leaped and directly charged in front of Su Fong. Spreading his hands apart, he laughed sinisterly complacently as he burst out with a terrifying aura that could topple mountains and overturn seas. Numerous mountains converged to crush down on Su Fong. Looks like I have no choice but to execute my hidden means. Heaven's secrets break all laws, heaven's prying eye. Su Fong executed the heaven's secret life shrinking technique. Void and misty destiny power blinded his eyes. Then he executed the heaven's divination mystic release divine ability, heaven's prying eye. In an instant, the divine ability that Fu Yi executed was full of flaws in Su Fong's heaven's prying eye. Break for me. Su Fong gave a cold cry and executed the mountain driving technique, blasting a fist toward that terrifying mountain sea. Chapter 1860. It looked like Su Fong was about to be defeated. C8C8C Red BSB. Xian Lingzi was not displeased at all. Instead, he was grinning from ear to ear. This kid, the gap between his cultivation and Fu Yi is too big. Even if he loses, it's a glorious loss. Elder Ling, stop that official disciple. Yes. Ling Xiangmei leaped into the air and was about to save him. Dong Shanwei and Mo Yintian were very proud. They thought that Su Fong's action was like a dragonfly shaking a stone pillar. This time, even if he didn't die, he would be seriously injured. Suddenly, boom! Fu Yi's terrifying aura, under Su Fong's final struggle, shattered layer by layer and instantly collapsed. Su Fong pushed the mountain-controlling art to the extreme, exploding with a mountain-like strength. His fist smashed into Fu Yi's chest as if it was made of rotten wood. The sound of bones breaking suddenly rang out, and a hole appeared in Fu Yi's chest. His flesh and bones were shattered, and even his internal organs were shattered. His body rolled out and fell heavily onto the life and death ring. As expected of an expert close to the sky god realm, his divine body was very strong, and his recovery ability was also very shocking. Fu Yi's wound wriggled and shrunk. His blood surged, and his flesh grew rapidly. Then the wound closed. However, Fu Yi's aura became dispirited. Even if his divine body recovered, he had used up a lot of his blood and qi, causing his vitality to be greatly damaged. Impossible, your art of driving mountain is an ordinary, trash divine ability. How could it break my supreme divine ability, the art of mountain and sea? Fu Yi could not believe this result. He looked at Su Fong in disbelief. In my hands, even a leaf can kill people. Even if you activate the divine weapon, you can't use the power of the divine weapon. Don't you understand this? Su Fong appeared to be immensely pleased with himself. This was exactly how Mo Fenghua usually behaved. Fu Yi gritted his teeth in hatred. However, no matter how unwilling he was, he had to lower his head and admit defeat. Su Fong's magical attack not only seriously injured him, but also completely destroyed his will and confidence. Fu Yi defeated. A peak 9th firmament true god expert was actually defeated at the hands of a trash who fused with a divine spar for less than 500 years. Everyone's hearts were in turmoil as they were immersed in intense shock. Genius. My grandson is actually a peerless genius. At this time, Xianlingzi looked at Su Fong's eyes not only with gratification, but also with excitement. His right hand trembled and kept stroking his beard. He didn't know how many strands of beard he had pulled off, but he didn't feel it all. Fu Yi, that trash, actually had diarrhea at a critical moment. Next, go for this young master. Dong Shanwei was flustered and exasperated, and immediately ordered the next challenger to go up and challenge Su Fong. The challenger was on the same level as Fu Yi. As soon as he came up, he used a medium-grade flying sword to unleash shocking sword qi, enveloping Su Fong from all directions. He actually planned on using a god artifact to defeat Su Fong in a single stroke. Puff, puff, puff. Su Fong used the chaotic earth formless seal, forming a chaotic gravitational field, twisting and shattering the sword qi layer by layer. Some of the sword qi was pulled by gravity, deviating from the target and shooting out in all directions. However, the power of a medium-grade divine artifact was really too shocking. Although this disciple could only unleash 30 to 40% of the medium-grade divine artifact's power, it was still absolutely not something that Su Fong could resist. It looked like Su Fong's chaotic gravitational field was about to be destroyed by the sword qi. Su Fong released a flying sword. It was actually an ungraded divine artifact. Everyone below the stage was stunned for a moment before bursting into laughter. Using an ungraded flying sword to cross swords with a medium-grade flying sword. Is Mo Fenghua's brain damaged? This was what everyone was thinking at this time. Just as everyone was laughing, a mysterious, controlling divine might exploded from Su Fong's body. Purple Qi Law Spirit. It turned out that Su Fong had activated the Purple Qi Law Spirit. In order to not attract attention, he had also activated the Heaven's Secret Life shrinking technique, concealing the presence of the Purple Qi Law Spirit. Even Xianlingzi could not see any clues. The monstrous sword intent of the middle-grade flying sword, under the supreme power of the Purple Qi Dharma Spirit, instantly became dispirited and listless. The flying sword could not help but tremble as if it had encountered the most terrifying thing in its life. Su Fong's flying sword was like a bolt of lightning, tearing apart the opponent's sword qi. The sword light tore a wound on his right shoulder. Blood spurted out, and the wound quickly turned black. There was a sizzling, corrosive sound, and his flesh fell off layer by layer. A poisonous black qi immediately spread through his body. Poison. Mo Fenghua, you are too despicable. You actually used poison. The disciple shouted angrily. Su Fong said coldly, your cultivation is much higher than mine, but you plan to use a divine artifact to crush me. Are you despicable? Or am I despicable? If you don't admit defeat, your life will be in danger. Su Fang's flying sword was dipped in Gui's poison. Even a celestial god realm expert would find it difficult to detoxify it, let alone this true god realm disciple. Furthermore, Gui's poison was formed by swallowing countless poisonous things. Ordinary detoxification pills would also be difficult to detoxify. This disciple swallowed a large amount of pills, but in the end, Gui's poison quickly seeped into his internal organs and brain. After persevering for a dozen breaths of time, he fell stiffly on the life and death platform. Su Fang walked over, crushed a pill, and sprinkled it on this unlucky disciple's wound. Then, he activated a strand of divine essence, pretending to detoxify him. In reality, he let Gui absorb all the poison in his body without leaving a trace. A moment later, this disciple faintly woke up. He looked at Su Fang as if he had seen a ghost, and scrambled away from the life and death platform. Hiss! Below the platform, there was a series of gasps. In their view, Mo Fenghua was clearly prepared long ago. They also did not know where he got such a strong poison. Next, who would dare to challenge him? Shameless, actually secretly using poison in a battle between fellow disciples. Simply too shameless. Everyone rebuked Su Fang angrily one after another, but no one went up the platform to challenge again. Su Fang said coldly, "As long as I don't borrow divine artifacts, I won't use poison." Next, who else wants to challenge? After a moment of silence below the platform, another official disciple whose strength reached peak ninth firmament true God jumped onto the life and death platform under Dong Shanwei's instructions. Smack! After the two people clashed for more than an hour, Su Fang cast the heaven-prying eye and found the other party's flaw, urging the mountain-driving art to blast him flying out, losing the strength to continue fighting. Just like this, Su Fang used the mountain-driving art, Kuan Chaos Formless Seal, Earth Ripple Stomping, these divine abilities, and secretly cast the heaven-prying eye, unfolding a confrontation with one challenger after another. Unknowingly, Su Fang entered a kind of wonderful state, having a kind of prying into heavenly Tao laws, a wonderful feeling of having heaven and earth in his heart, appearing more and more relaxed, more and more at ease. The feeling that it gave people was that Su Fang seemed to have merged in a heavenly Tao, casually attacking, but being able to unleash tremendous power. Divine essence, blood energy consumption was excessive. Su Fang subconsciously swallowed medicinal pills, swiftly recovering, immersing himself in this kind of wonderful state from start to finish. One official disciple after another was defeated by Su Fang. The current Su Fang was akin to a war god, invincible in every battle, sweeping everything before him. On the life and death platform, Su Fang's figure that was not very tall was so tall and majestic in everyone's eyes at this time, akin to a divine sun slowly rising, resplendent and dazzling. The momentum of his rise was unstoppable. Go again. Dong Shanwei's eyes also turned red, falling into a frenzy, loudly ordering disciples one by one to go up the platform. The crowd below the platform gradually turned from the initial shock to numbness. In the future, whoever dares to say that this seat's grandson is trash, this seat will tear his mouth apart. Xian Lingzi was wild with joy, unable to control himself from shedding old tears. 5 days later, the number of challengers defeated by Su Fang reached as many as 47. No matter how Dong Shanwei ordered, no one took the initiative to go up the platform to challenge Su Fang. Those disciples who had challenged Su Fang very consciously paid 100 divine jades to the law enforcement disciples, completely dispelling the idea of challenging Su Fang. Fu Zhe, why haven't you made a move yet? Mo Yuntian transmitted his primordial spirit to Fu Zhe. Su Fang had won consecutively. Mo Yuntian was shocked, and he felt more and more apprehensive of Su Fang. At this time, if he did not curb Su Fang's rise, not only would he have no hope of obtaining the position of Xianling Dao's sex young master, But when Su Fong grew to a certain height, he might not even be able to protect his life. Fu Zhe replied, I don't have the confidence to cripple Mo Fenghua without leaving a trace. At most, I can only defeat him. Mo Yuntian said, it's good to defeat him. We can't let him be arrogant on the platform. Just as Fu Zhe was about to challenge, Su Fong's body suddenly spewed out a burst of tribulation fire. Broke through? Mo Fenghua actually broke through on the life and death platform. How long has it been since he fused with the divine spark? He actually broke through to third firmament true God so quickly? Medium-grade Earth rank divine spark is actually heaven-defying to such a terrifying degree, turning a trash into a genius with a shake of his body. Under everyone's gazes, and after repeated challenges, Su Fong was actually about to advance to third firmament true God, causing a wave of exclamations and commotion. There were also some people who were endlessly jealous, thinking that Su Fong merely had a good grandfather. The middle-grade Earth-ranked divine spark laid a solid foundation, and he also had powerful cultivation methods, divine abilities, and inexhaustible resources. Good grandson, don't worry about advancing. Grandpa, I will guard you, huh? Xianlingzi was pleasantly surprised, immediately appearing on the life and death platform. The law enforcement elder cupped his fists and bowed. Elder Xianlingzi, congratulations. Xianlingzi waved his hand and personally created the spiritual energy gathering formation, letting Su Fong break through on the life and death platform. Seeing Xianlingzi personally appear, everyone in the plaza dispersed one after another. Fu Zhe, who was preparing to challenge Su Fong, also dispelled the thought. When Su Fong was still at second firmament true God, he was practically invincible in the true God realm. Now, advancing to third firmament again, who among the true God realm deities could stop his edge? Moreover, there was still Xianlingzi present. No matter how secretive the method, it could not harm Su Fong. Even if he was defeated, it was also meaningless. Chapter 1861. So fast, I'm actually going to break through. Looks like I made the right choice by challenging the official disciples. Su Fong woke up from his wonderful state and was immediately overjoyed. Then he sat down cross-legged and began to swallow the pills, absorbing the natural spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the formation to rush through his body. Chi-chi. Under the impact, the wave-like tribulation energy turned into tribulation fire. Suddenly, there was a huge explosion, enveloping Su Fong and burning crazily. In the shocking burning, Su Fong's divine body rumbled and shook. Layers of impurities came out of the placenta and quickly turned into dust under the tribulation fire. The aura coming out of the divine body gradually turned from the previous 2 layers to 3 layers, and it was getting clearer. Third mysterious sky, true God. After going through challenges and surpassing his limits again and again, Su Fong finally broke through another level. Xianlingzi directly brought Su Fong to Xianlingzi's palace and let him cultivate in the palace to stabilize his third heavenly true God state. Before leaving, Xianlingzi reminded Su Fong, Grandfather knows that you want to participate in the Kimiko Hoshino competition, but your strength is far from enough. Cultivation can't be rushed, so don't be too eager for quick success. Like this time, challenging all the official disciples was a bit rash and really can't be done. Grandfather will go and plead with the leader and let him come out and invite the Star Billow Divine World Treasure Refiner to Kuinsu Divine World to refine weapons. At the same time, he will also refine a peerless divine weapon for you. This way, even if you face a heavenly God realm deity, you'll have the power to fight. When you break through a few more levels, Grandfather will let Elder Ling accompany you to the divine sect to train. Xianlingzi had arranged everything for Su Fong's future cultivation path, making Su Fong feel touched. Thus, Su Fong went into seclusion in the palace again. While stabilizing his third heavenly true God state, he cultivated the 9 yang, 9 transformations, and continuously attacked the 56th yang meridian. At the same time, he also cultivated other techniques. Su Fang's harvest this time could be said to be huge. Now that his cultivation had risen to the third sky of True God realm, his battle experience against true gods had also increased by quite a bit. In addition, the official disciples who challenged Su Fang all paid 100 godly jades and gave up challenging Su Fang, allowing Su Fang to earn more than 10 million godly jades. With such wealth, even Kuan Su's divine sect's elders couldn't compare to him. Su Fang could also be considered a wealthy person. Su Fang asked Uncle Chong to purchase a large number of elixirs and spiritual items from Kuan Su's divine sect, especially spiritual items that contained pure yang and fire elemental natural essences. Su Fang had always been generous to his subordinates. He gave Count Chong 1,000 mid-grade divine essence pills, as well as other pills that could raise cultivation and strengthen blood and qi. Count Chong was moved to tears once again. In addition, Su Fang also gave Ling Xiangmei a huge sum of money, making it difficult for Ling Xiangmei to open her mouth and exchange with him. Monster Saint Green Feather, Undead Lord, Yu Miaomei, Zhu Yin, Guige, Long Miao, and even Zi Fan, who had always been by Su Fang's master's side, all received a large amount of resources. These were all cultivation resources from all over the universe. Naturally, their improvement speed was incomparably shocking. Su Fang also didn't forget about the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda. He purchased various spiritual items that contained the powers of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, and lightning to raise the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda to a divine artifact. There was also the immortal devil monster. In the Transformation Supreme Tao stage, its second primordial spirit was lost. However, the immortal devil monster's physical body remained in Su Fang's inner world. Su Fang specifically purchased a large amount of pills and spiritual items that contained boundless blood and qi. He used the power of yin and yang to help it fuse. With this, the immortal devil monster's physical body could be raised to the height of a divine body. This time, Su Fang publicly challenged the official disciples. Although he had gained a lot, it also brought about a lot of trouble. Mo Fan was originally the public enemy of Kuan Su's divine sect. This time, he had gathered so many divine jades and obtained great fame. Not to mention the core disciples, even some of the elders of Kuan Su's divine sect were envious. In addition, the official disciples that Su Fang had extorted or defeated were all related. They all wanted to get back at Su Fang. Thus, all kinds of trouble followed one after another. On the contrary, no official disciples came to challenge him. However, a large number of core disciples came to Xianling Dao stage and challenged Su Fang. Even Xianling Dao stage's disciples were implicated. They constantly clashed with other Dao stage's disciples outside. Under Mo Fan Hua's secret encouragement, Xianling Dao stage's disciples were extremely jealous of Su Fang. If it wasn't for Xianling Zi, 100 Su Fangs would have been torn apart and eaten by everyone. Although no one came to provoke him, all kinds of secret harassment were unceasing. Su Fang decided to leave Xianling Dao stage and lie low for a while. He wasn't afraid of trouble, but he didn't want to waste his energy on such meaningless matters. On this day, Xianling Dao stage was very quiet. No one knew what had happened. Most of the disciples had left Xianling Dao stage, and no other Dao stage's disciples came to harass him. Uncle Chong brought Su Fang, passed through the array, and flew out of the Dao stage's barrier. In the sky above Kuan Su Mountain, Su Fang saw that tens of millions of Kuan Su divine sect disciples were lined up on the mountain peak's plaza. Master Kuan Su led the divine sect's upper echelons to stand in the air. It seemed like they were welcoming someone. No one knew what kind of important person it was to actually cause Kuan Su divine sect to set up such a large formation. It was as if they had turned out in full force. This was a scene that had never happened since the establishment of Kuan Su divine sect. Su Fang was very shocked. He had Uncle Chong go down to investigate. After a while, Uncle Chong excitedly returned. "Young master, something big has happened. A great elder from the Star Billow Divine Realm, as well as the Star Billow Divine Realm's master refiner, the three divine kings, have graced Kuan Su divine sect with their presence. Su Fong asked in astonishment. Even if an important person from the star below divine realm has come, Kuan Su divine sect wouldn't need to put on such a big show, right? Uncle Chong said, young master may not know this, but the great elder of the star below divine realm has a noble status. His strength is also incomparably powerful. He's even a level higher than the leader of Kuan Su divine sect. However, this great elder isn't much. The most important thing is the three divine kings. The three divine kings? Is it because of his identity as a master refiner? Young master is truly intelligent. Not only is the three divine kings the #1 master refiner of the star below divine realm, it's said that their origins are also astonishing. Even the star below divine realm's realm master is extremely respectful towards them. The Kuan Su divine realm is only a small realm. How could the entire divine sect not line the streets to welcome such an important person like the three divine kings? What a great three divine kings! Su Fong's heart surged with reverence. Uncle Chong said, full of expectation, Lord Sovereign is preparing to ask a master refiner to tailor an exceptional divine weapon for young master. If he can ask the three divine kings to help, that would truly be great. Su Fong shook his head and smiled. What kind of status did the three divine kings have? Xianlingzi could be considered a big shot in Kuan Su divine sect. However, in front of the three divine kings, he probably wouldn't even be able to say a word. How could he ask the three divine kings to refine a weapon for him? It was already not bad to be able to ask the disciples of the three divine kings to help him, and he even had to pay a huge price. Let's go. It just so happens that no one is paying attention. Let's quickly leave Kuan Su divine sect. If we're discovered, we'll attract a lot of trouble. Su Fong originally wanted to see what kind of people the three divine kings were, but when he thought of the countless troubles, he could only give up. Under Uncle Chong's lead, Su Fong came to a huge manor located in the divine kingdom. The big shots of Kuan Su divine sect all had their own forces and properties in the Kuan Su divine realm. The manor that Su Fong came to was a property under Xianlingzi's name. Although the spirit chi was far inferior to that of Kuan Su divine sect's training grounds and secret realms, the environment was very quiet. Su Fong now had a large amount of cultivation resources, so he didn't care about the environment. He only wanted to cultivate quietly for a period of time, consolidate his third heavenly layer realm, and digest his harvest this time. In the manor, there was a huge lake with an area of 10,000 miles. The lake water was clear and the scenery was picturesque. Su Fong settled down in an abode by the lake. He created a formation and settled down in his cultivation. 100 years passed in the blink of an eye. Su Fong stabilized his cultivation at the third heavenly layer realm of True God. On this day, after 10 years of cultivation, Su Fong walked out of the abode. Uncle Chong, let's go take a look at the divine kingdom. Although this huge lake belonged to Xianlingzi, he didn't prohibit outsiders from entering. There were many fishermen fishing in the lake. Seeing these fishermen, Su Fong suddenly remembered that he hadn't entered the mortal world for a long time. He was immediately interested. He also thought of the silent Yu Miaomei, so he decided to take a look at the mortal world of the divine realm and let Yu Miaomei relax. Uncle Chong trembled as he said, Young master, the Emperor of the Divine Kingdom framed you and has already been punished by the punishment hall. The current emperor has already changed hands. Those imperial concubines and princesses are all ordinary women, far inferior to the female disciples of the divine sect. I just want to take a look at the divine kingdom. It's not as dirty as you think. Su Fong knew what Uncle Chong was thinking and was speechless. So Uncle Chong brought Su Fong to the capital of the divine kingdom. The two restrained their auras, just like mortals. Looking at the mortal world, which was completely different from the small world and the immortal world, Su Fong couldn't help but widen his horizons. Then Su Fong displayed his divine might, allowing Monster Saint Greenfeather, Yu Miaomei, and Zhu Yin to see the bustling world outside. Yu Miaomei, who had always been silent, gradually became active. Monster Sage Greenfeather and Zhu Yin had witnessed the mundane world of the divine realm, and their horizons had been broadened. They arrived at the most bustling market in the capital. When they passed by a shop selling weapons, an angry shout came from inside. "You old thing, how dare you deceive His Highness the Fifth Prince, saying that the sword you forged could cut iron like mud. In the end, you made the Fifth Prince make a bet with someone. Not only did you destroy the sword, you also made him lose money and face." Clang! A short sword was thrown out of the shop, almost hitting Su Fong. Uncle Chong reached out and caught it. Uncle Chong was furious and was about to enter the shop when Su Fong stopped him. "Uncle Chong, forget it." Su Fong inadvertently saw the broken sword from the corner of his eyes, and his expression changed slightly. Chapter 1862. This broken sword was forged from ordinary iron. It was definitely not a magic treasure. Read Book 230. However, it was also such a broken sword that made Su Fong feel incomparably shocked. Why was this? Su Fong's great perfection ability sensed that the ordinary iron used to forge the broken sword not only did not contain a trace of impurities, but between the smallest particles that made up the ordinary iron, it was forged to an extremely wonderful state of balance. This made the sword forged from ordinary iron not ordinary, and it could easily cut through iron like mud. What made Su Fong surprised was that the place where the broken sword was cut had a faint aura of a divine weapon. It was very obvious that it was cut by a divine weapon. A treasured sword forged from ordinary iron could actually fight against a divine weapon. Although it was still cut in half, it could still be seen how extraordinary this sword was. What made Su Fong most shocked was that within the broken sword, there was a very weak trace of Great Providence Purple Chi. Although this trace of Great Providence Purple Chi was very weak, it surpassed the Great Providence Purple Chi produced when ordinary divine weapons were born. It made the Purple Chi Dharma spirit in the inner world tremble. In other words, the person who forged this treasured sword was definitely not a craftsman from the ordinary world, nor was he an ordinary blacksmith. Su Fong estimated that this person was a blacksmith master who could forge a supreme-grade divine weapon, or even a supreme-grade peak divine weapon. This is really interesting. There is actually such a powerful blacksmith master hidden in a shop in the divine nation. Su Fong was surprised and stunned. Law exclaimed at this time, "A blacksmith who can forge a supreme-grade peak divine weapon is definitely a big shot in the heavens. It is equivalent to a domain master, or even a peerless figure who is more powerful than a starry sky domain master. I didn't expect such a figure to come to a small world like Kuan Su's divine realm. Su Fong, if you can make friends with such a person, it will only be good for you in the future. There is absolutely no harm. In front of such a peerless giant, I am no different from an ant. Why would he put me in his eyes?" Su Fong chuckled in his heart. "I don't dare to have extravagant hopes of befriending such a person. If I can get him to tailor a life-bound divine artifact that I can use now, I'll be perfectly satisfied." Luo sighed and said, "A refiner who can refine a natal divine weapon is very rare. It can only be found by chance. Moreover, if you want to invite such a person, the divine jade treasures you have are far from enough." It wasn't that Su Fong didn't have any divine artifacts on him. He also had the Origin's Sacred Mirror, a supreme divine artifact. However, he didn't reveal any of them. With Su Fong's current wealth, he could even afford a high-grade divine artifact. Xinlingzi also had some. However, divine artifacts were different from Dao artifacts. Dao artifacts needed to be compatible with the great Dao cultivated by the deity and fuse with the Godhead and divine body. They were similar to natal magic artifacts and were called natal divine artifacts. They were also a type of natal magic artifacts. However, they were different from natal magic artifacts like the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda. Natal divine artifacts focused on the compatibility of the great Dao, while the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda focused on the fusion of the body and soul. Natal divine artifacts were easier to control. They could unleash the greatest power and support the owner's cultivation method and magic to the greatest extent. Moreover, they could also become stronger as the owner's cultivation increased. A natal artifact had to be specially refined by a blacksmith. Blacksmiths who could refine a natal artifact were all grandmasters. If one wanted to hire such a blacksmith, the price one had to pay was no small matter. In order to refine a natal divine artifact for Su Fong, Xianlingzi once humbly invited a refiner from the Star Billow divine world to the Koan Su divine world. However, there was no result after several invitations. This time, the third master came to the Koan Su divine world. Xianlingzi must have asked him to refine a natal divine artifact for Su Fong. However, with Xianlingzi's status, he might not be able to invite the third master. This time, he accidentally met a powerful refiner. Naturally, Su Fong wanted to try his luck. He stepped into the shop. A middle-aged man in gorgeous clothes, who should be the subordinate of the Divine Kingdom's fifth prince, was sternly reprimanding an old man. At the end of his words, he raised his hand and slapped the old man's face. Seeing Su Fong and Uncle Chong come in, the middle-aged man coldly shouted in a domineering manner, "The fifth prince's people are working here. Everyone else, get out." Presumptuous. How dare a bullshit fifth prince be so arrogant? Uncle Chong rolled up a divine power and shook the middle-aged man away. He fell to the ground. Although he was not injured, his blood and chi were surging. His face was red, and he almost vomited blood. Cultivator? The middle-aged man looked at Uncle Chong in awe. Then, he became unyielding. So what if you're a cultivator? Even if you're from the Koan Su divine sect, you dare to offend the fifth prince. When the time comes, I'll report you to the divine sect's punishment hall. You won't be able to bear the consequences. When the middle-aged man saw Su Fong's appearance, his whole body suddenly trembled. It was as if he had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Obviously, he recognized Su Fong's identity. This was not strange. Previously, the Divine Kingdom's emperor had falsely accused Mo Fenghua's imperial family. In the end, Xianlingzi ordered the Koan Su divine sect to come out and chop off the emperor's head. The Divine Kingdom also had a new emperor. Because of this, Mo Fenghua's great reputation was known by everyone in the Divine Kingdom's imperial family. Almost every member of the imperial family had a copy of his portrait. They were afraid that some blind person would provoke this fiend and bring disaster to the imperial family. This middle-aged man was the fifth prince's servant. Naturally, he had seen Mo Fenghua's portrait before. Therefore, he recognized Su Fong at a glance. Young Lord Mo. The middle-aged man trembled. Sweat flowed from his forehead like spring water. He almost collapsed on the ground. Get lost. Count Chong waved his hand and swept the middle-aged man out of the shop. That old man was the shop owner. Knowing that he had met a big shot, he cupped his fists and said gratefully to Su Fong, "Thank you for your help." Su Fong swept the shop owner's body with his great perfection ability. He found that the shop owner was only a mortal and definitely not the person who forged the broken sword. He took out the broken sword and asked, "Who forged this sword?" "This sword was personally forged by our shop's master Mo." The shop owner answered truthfully. Su Fong said, "Take me to see this master Mo immediately." The shop owner said awkwardly, "This Master Mo's temper is a bit strange. He never meets outsiders. Moreover, he would only occasionally forge swords when he is in a good mood. This little one is afraid that Master Mo would be rude and offend you. No matter. Just take me to see him directly." Under Su Fong's insistence, the shop owner did not dare to disobey. He brought Su Fong and Count Chong to the backyard. On the ground of the backyard, there was a messy pile of materials. They were all ordinary materials, and there was nothing special about them. Even if a divine realm master entered here, it would be difficult to find any clues. Su Fong, however, saw the mystery with his great perfection ability. These messy materials formed a huge and incomparably complicated formation, causing the natural energy of heaven and earth in the backyard to undergo extremely subtle changes. Once intruded, the balance of the natural energy of heaven and earth would be disturbed, causing a series of disturbances. If such a formation was created with spirit stones, divine artifacts, or other formation materials, Su Fong would not be so surprised. Master Mo was able to use the most ordinary materials without leaving any marks on them, yet he was able to create such a complicated and powerful formation. From this, it could be seen that his mastery of nature had already reached an astonishing level where he could do as he pleased. This truly shocked Su Fong. Even Law was shocked. This person is extraordinary, very extraordinary. Not to mention his strength, his understanding and control of the natural laws of heaven and earth has definitely reached a level higher than that of a realm master. You must not offend such a person. I can't wait to curry favor with such a peerless figure. Why would I offend him? Su Fong responded with a smile. The shop owner shouted, "Master Imo, a noble has come. Please come out to meet him." After shouting several times, a tired voice came from a room in the backyard. "I'm not free. If he wants to see me, let him come in himself." "Noble, you see, Master Mo has such a temper." The shop owner smiled helplessly. Su Fong said, "It's fine. I'll go in myself." The shop owner hurriedly dissuaded. "Noble, please don't go in. I don't know what method Master Mo used, but outsiders can't enter the backyard at all. This humble one once walked in, but it was like a ghost hitting a wall. I was trapped inside for half a month and almost lost my life." "Uncle Chong, wait here." Su Fong smiled faintly and walked into the backyard. His eyes flickered with an ethereal and mysterious light. He used the heaven's eye and found a path to Master Mo's room in the complicated array. From the outside to the door of the room, it was only a distance of over 15 meters. But Su Fong walked for 3 days before finally arriving at the door of the room. Exhaustion seeped out from his entire body. Continuously using the heaven prying, I made him expend quite a bit too. In the room, a middle-aged man with an elegant face was sitting on the ground. He should be Master Mo. Hundreds of jade slips floated around the middle-aged man. Each jade slip emitted a xian guang, forming a light screen. And each light screen showed a scene of weapon forging. Su Fong looked carefully for a while. In these weapon forging scenes, there were ordinary blacksmiths forging some simple weapons. There were also some weapon forging masters forging divine weapons. The scholarly middle-aged man was staring intently at a light screen. His eyes were bloodshot, and he seemed to be concentrating on something. He didn't notice Su Fong coming to the door. The weapon forging handprints shown by the shadow in the picture gave Su Fong a terrifying feeling of refining heaven and earth. After a few glances, his young spirit and soul showed signs of being refined by the handprints. Buzz, in Su Fong's inner world, mysterious heavenly Tao markings flickered. An aura that encompassed heaven and earth and the universe rushed into his divine aperture. Only then did he get rid of this terrifying feeling. Su Fong quickly withdrew his gaze. Chapter 1863. Su Fong didn't dare to look at the images anymore. 3 is not equal to 8. 3 is not equal to 8. 3 is not equal to reading. 3 is not equal to books. Oh, he tried to sense this person's aura with his perfect circle ability, but all he sensed was nothingness, as if this person didn't exist at all. Wong. The purple chi law spirit in Su Fong's inner world sensed the great pregnant purple chi on this person and trembled violently, almost unable to control it, trying to break free from his inner world. Su Fong was shocked again. "Azi, what's going on?" The purple chi law spirit replied. "This person has a strong, great pregnant purple chi on him, far surpassing the height of the great pregnant purple chi when ordinary magic treasures are born, and there's a trace of aura that even I can't control, but I don't know what it is." Law was also shocked. That's the aura of a divine tool of creation, which means this person often comes into contact with such supreme magic treasures. This person is unfathomable, at least a powerful existence like the Domain Lord. You have to be careful. What's a divine tool of creation? It's the formation of the heavenly Tao at the beginning of heaven and earth, born from the chaos, and has the fortune of heaven and earth, a peak supreme grade divine tool. In my Azure Divine clan, there are a few divine tools of creation that were born together with the Azure Divine clan and became our clan's divine tools. Divine clan, like Sanskrit, probably also has a divine tool of creation. Is my mirror a divine creation artifact as well? I think your ancient mirror should be more powerful than a divine tool of creation. Even I have never heard of such a high-level magic treasure, let alone come into contact with it. Su Fong fell into a state of intense shock. The primeval chaos, sacred mirror became more and more mysterious in his heart. Law continued. If your purple chi law spirit continues to grow and transform, perhaps one day it will surpass the level of a divine tool, or even a treasure mirror. That requires absorbing a large amount of great pregnant purple chi and devouring more divine tool spirits. Kuan Su's divine sect also has a weapon refining hall, and when I have the chance, I must go there to absorb more great pregnant purple chi. At this time, Sai, the scholarly middle-aged man, sighed. It has already been an epic. There is clearly only a thin layer of paper between them. Why can't I pierce through it? Where is the pinnacle of the art of refining? According to my divination, the opportunity that belongs to me is in this small world. But where is it? It seems that it will be difficult for me to break through the shackles and step into that legendary realm in my lifetime. It's destined that I won't be able to see the peak of the Grand Tao. Master Mo heaved a heavy sigh and waved his hand, storing all the jade slips into his body. That's because you took the wrong path, Su Fong suddenly said. Only now did Master Mo notice Su Fong. Clearly, he had been too engrossed in the array just now, so he didn't expect anyone to pass through his array to come here. His eyes flashed with surprise. How did you get in? Su Fong smiled faintly. Since the great master left a way in, someone will naturally find it. A third firmament, true god deity. Interesting. The scholarly middle-aged man chuckled and didn't ask anything else. He continued, You also know how to refine? Su Fong nodded. I know a little. Tell me, how did I take the wrong path? Master Mo revealed a mocking expression. With his cultivation and the height of the great Tao of tools, a third firmament true god actually said that he had taken the wrong path. It was truly an extremely laughable thing. Su Fong sat down on the ground unceremoniously and then asked calmly, Tell me, how did you cultivate the great Tao of refining? Perhaps I can give you a few pointers and let you get some inspiration from it. Su Fong's words were not arrogant, nor were they deliberately arrogant words to attract Master Mo's attention. At this time, he could only refine a peak supreme grade Tao artifact at best. He couldn't refine a divine artifact because his cultivation and experience were insufficient, not because his level of refining was insufficient. This was what people often said about having high standards but low ability. Su Fong's refining came from Emperor Tianbao's great Tao of refining. Emperor Tianbao was only an immortal, but he could refine a divine artifact, and it was a human-shaped one that attracted heavenly punishment. Even Xu Wanjin was full of admiration for such a high level. She thought that there were very few people in the universe who could reach such heights. Unfortunately, Emperor Tianbao devoted his life to refining and neglected his cultivation, causing his lifespan to run out and he couldn't ascend to the universe. Otherwise, his great Tao of refining would eventually be verified, and he might be able to reach the peak of the great Tao of refining. Su Fong was the one who verified Emperor Tianbao's great Tao of refining. He cultivated himself as a divine artifact. Moreover, he cultivated an inner world and integrated a chaos godhead. His level of refining was something that even Emperor Tianbao couldn't reach back in the day. This mysterious and unfathomable master, Mo, could be considered a powerful artifact refiner in the myriad worlds. However, it didn't mean that his level of refining was higher than that of Emperor Tianbao and Su Fong. Even if Su Fong couldn't give him any pointers, he could more or less give him some inspiration. Su Fong knew very well that such a powerful existence wouldn't be moved no matter how humbly he begged or how much he paid. If Su Fong wanted him to willingly refine his natal divine artifact, Su Fong was going all out. Master Mo chuckled. There aren't many refiners who are qualified to give me pointers. You're only a third firmament true god. What qualifications do you have to give me pointers? Su Fong said, I saw you observing others refining just now. If I'm not wrong, you want to learn from it and break through the shackles to reach a higher level. Am I wrong? Master Mo's deep eyes flashed with a wisp of light. He nodded and said, yes. All cultivators learn from the experiences of their predecessors and finally reach the peak of the Tao of cultivation. Who is an exception? Just like your cultivation method and divine power, which one of them isn't the summary of the experiences of your predecessors? Could it be that I'm wrong? Your fault is right here. It's not bad for cultivators to learn from the experiences of their predecessors. However, it's like a painter who needs to copy others in the beginning. I've never heard of anyone who can become a master through copying. If you blindly learn from your predecessors, you'll be influenced by their experiences and blind your Tao heart. How can you reach the peak of the great Tao? The peak reached by learning from the predecessors is the peak of the predecessors and not the peak of the great Tao. Master Mo was obviously not convinced. He shook his head and said, the foundation of the Tao of cultivation comes from the birth of the world. The process of the birth of the world creates the Tao of cultivation. It's the same for the Tao of refining. This is the law of cultivation and the essence of cultivation. I first learned from my predecessors and also learned from nature. I wanted to gain enlightenment from nature, but I still failed. Su Fong said with a smile, the mysteries of nature are endless. How can you possibly comprehend all of them? If you blindly learn from nature, then let me ask you, where are you? Aren't you also shackled and limited by the laws of nature? What's the difference between you and your predecessors? Learning from your predecessors, learning from nature, but not sticking to the experiences of your predecessors in nature. In the end, you learn from yourself. This is the essence of cultivation. These words were definitely not nonsense from Su Fong. Instead, he had cultivated the 9 suns, 9 transformations, and the world tree. He had comprehended the great Tao of refining from Emperor Tianbao and fused with the primal chaos divine spark. Although he had not fully verified it, the overall direction pointed to the essence of cultivation. Learning from nature, but not sticking to the laws of nature. Learning from yourself. Master Mo repeated Su Fong's words and thought hard. Suddenly, Master Mo's body shook. Boom! It was as if thunder had sounded in his mind, dispelling the layers of fog. The window paper that could not be pierced through for countless years suddenly broke open, revealing a ray of light. Master Mo closed his eyes and entered a strange state. He forgot about Su Fong and everything around him. Su Fong calmed his breathing and wiped his sweat. It seemed easy to talk to such an expert, but in reality, he was under a lot of pressure. Buzz! It turned out that the rune on the Xian jade ring that Xian Lingzi used to communicate with Su Fong suddenly moved. Su Fong took out the rune, and the shadow of Xian Lingzi's soul appeared. Feng Hua returned to Kuan Su divine sect. Seeing the excitement in Xian Lingzi's tone, Su Fong asked in surprise, what happened? Good news, very good news. Grandpa finally found an artifact master who is willing to tailor a divine artifact for you. Su Fong was stunned, and then he was very happy. Could it be the 3 masters? The shadow of Xian Lingzi's soul smiled bitterly. I don't have that much face to invite the 3 masters. Ever since I came to Kuan Su Divine Realm, he only showed his face once, and then closed the door to guests. I invited the 3 masters' eldest disciple, Master Lu, who is also an artifact master. In the Star Billow Divine Realm, he's only second to the 3 masters. You're really lucky this time. Come back quickly. Master Lu will make you a natal divine artifact. I'll be right back. Su Fong grabbed the rune, and the shadow of Xian Lingzi's soul disappeared without a trace. Su Fong stood up and bowed to Master Mo. Then he walked out of the room and used the heaven prying eye. He walked out of the layers of formations and arrived outside the courtyard. Uncle Chong asked, Young Master, did you see Master Mo? I did. Let's go back to Kuan Su Divine Sect. Uncle Chong took Su Fong and flew away. Only then did the frightened shopkeeper let out a long sigh of relief. After returning to Xian Ling Dojo, Su Fong went to the guest hall to see Xian Lingzi. In the hall, the upper echelons of Xian Ling Dojo were all gathered, waiting for Master Lu's arrival. Xian Lingzi saw that Su Fong's cultivation had stabilized at the 3rd sky of True God Realm. He was very happy and praised Su Fong again. The other upper echelons also followed suit. That Master Lu was really arrogant. Su Fong and the other upper echelons of Xianling Dojo waited in the hall for more than 10 days, but he still didn't come. Chapter 1864. This time, the Great Elder and the 3 divine kings of the Star Below Divine Realm came to the Kuan Su Divine Realm. Master Kuan Su treated them as guests of honor and opened up his own secret realm for the 2 great figures to stay. Master Lu was the eldest disciple of the 3 divine kings and was arranged to stay in a palace in the secret realm. In all the realms, only a refiner who could refine a top-grade divine artifact was qualified to be called a master. The 3 divine kings were respected as masters because they could refine top-grade divine artifacts. Master Lu was the eldest disciple of the 3 divine kings. His title was naturally not a true master, but a title others gave him. However, Master Lu's refining skills, identity, and personal strength were all extraordinary. In the Kuan Su divine sect, even Master Kuan Su had to be polite to him, let alone Xianlingzi. Master Lu is receiving guests and is waiting outside. Xianlingzi took Su Fong to the palace and was stopped by Master Lu's disciples. The 2 could only wait outside the palace. Who knew that this wait would take more than 2 hours? Su Fong couldn't help but frown. This Master Lu was a bit too arrogant. Fenghua, be patient. Xianlingzi sent a message to Su Fong. You made a blood oath to Fan Su, so this battle is inevitable. In a short 3,000 years, your cultivation won't be able to catch up with him. You can only think of ways to make up for it with divine artifacts. In the Star Below Divine Realm, there aren't many refiners who can refine natal divine artifacts, and this Master Lu is one of them. It's not easy to seize this opportunity. You can't miss it. Xianlingzi warned Su Fong carefully, afraid that his grandson's playboy character would offend Master Lu, and the matter of asking him to refine a divine artifact would be ruined. After waiting for nearly 2 hours, another person came to visit Master Lu. It turned out that Dongshan Wan, the elder of the Eastern Mountain Dojo, had come with his son, Dongshan Wei. His purpose was the same as Xianlingzi's, which was to ask Master Lu to forge Dongshan Wei's natal divine weapon. In terms of seniority, Dongshan Wan was 1 generation lower than Xianlingzi. His strength was also inferior to Xianlingzi. He was very polite in front of Xianlingzi. Dongshan Wei gnashed his teeth at Su Fong, wishing he could eat Su Fong. About an hour later, a dark-skinned middle-aged man walked out of the palace accompanied by a silver-haired old man. Su Fong was no stranger to this old man. He was the Sanskrit expert who had come to Kuan Su's divine sect with Fan Su and had a brief confrontation with Xianlingzi. The dark-skinned, middle-aged man had an arrogant expression. He had a lofty aura, and his aura was ethereal. Su Fong's great perfection ability could sense that this person's aura contained an astonishing divine flame aura. The middle-aged man was the eldest disciple of the 3 divine kings, Master Lu. Please rest assured, Elder Fan. I will definitely persuade my master to make a trip to the cloudy divine realm after the matter in Kuan Su's divine realm is settled. He will forge a natal divine weapon for young Master Fan Su. Master Lu sent the old man of Sanskrit to the door and cupped his fists. Thank you, Master Lu. The old man in silver thanked him politely. Just as he was about to leave, the old man in silver caught a glimpse of Xianlingzi and Su Fong. He was startled for a moment, then immediately understood the purpose of their visit. He then smiled disdainfully. The old man in silver pointed at Su Fong and said to Master Lu, Master Lu wouldn't be planning to forge a natal divine weapon for him, would you? If that's the case, then it would be interesting. Master Lu said in surprise, I've already promised Elder Xianlingzi to forge a natal divine weapon for his descendant. What does Elder Fan mean by this? The old man in silver smiled and said, This child is arrogant and ignorant. He actually dared to challenge my clan's young Master Fan Su with the ancient blood oath. Master Lu raised his eyebrows and glanced at Su Fong. However, his eyes were full of disdain and contempt. The old man in silver continued, If this child uses the natal divine weapon that Master Lu forged for him to fight against the natal divine weapon that the three divine kings forged for young Master Fan Su 3,000 years later, I wonder what the result will be. Master Lu's divine light changed instantly. Xianlingzi had promised a large sum of money, and only then did Master Lu agree to forge a natal divine weapon for Su Fang. In the turbid cloud realm, Sanskrit had specially sent an elder to Kuan Su's divine sect to invite the three divine kings to forge a natal divine weapon for Fan Su. With Sanskrit's power, the three divine kings would definitely not be able to ignore this. If it really was as the old man in silver said, Su Fang would definitely die at Fan Su's hands. Master Lu naturally wouldn't care about Su Fang's life or death. However, when the time came, there would definitely be people who would question the quality of the natal divine weapon he forged. This would greatly affect his reputation. Moreover, the old man in silver's words clearly had the intention of threatening and warning him. Forging a natal divine weapon for Su Fang would offend Sanskrit. On one side was the powerful Sanskrit, and on the other side was merely an elder of a small realm. Naturally, Master Lu wouldn't find it difficult to make a decision. Xianlingzi also realized that the matter was going to be ruined. After the old man in silver left, he hurriedly said to Master Lu, "Master Lu, I previously promised to double the reward from Master." Without waiting for Xianlingzi to finish speaking, Master Lu rudely interrupted him and said indifferently, "No matter how much reward you give, I won't forge a weapon for your grandson." Challenging Mr. Fan Su, you really don't know what's good for you. Why would I forge a weapon for someone who's bound to die? Xianlingzi bowed and cupped his fists. He said humbly, "Master." Master Lu said coldly, "I still have guests to see. Elder Xianlingzi, please go back." Xianlingzi still wanted to plead, but Su Fang stopped him. "Grandfather, let's go. Is there no one else in all the realms who can forge a natal divine weapon? Besides, it's better to rely on yourself and on others. Without a natal divine weapon, I can still defeat Fan Su." Xianlingzi was still a big shot of Kuan Su's divine sect. Now that he was so humble, Su Fang was moved. He was furious with Master Lu, so he didn't speak politely. As for a natal divine weapon, Su Fang really didn't care about it. Besides, there was that mysterious Master Mo. After he came out of seclusion, it shouldn't be difficult to ask him to forge a natal divine weapon. Master Lu sneered, "Since I rejected you, who in the Star Billow realm would dare to forge a weapon for you? You're delusional to think you can defeat Mr. Fan Su. Truly arrogant and ignorant." Dongshan Wei smiled proudly. "Mo Fenghua, wait until I have a natal divine weapon. At that time, see how I'll torture you to death. You can't even beat me, yet you're delusional to think you can defeat Mr. Fan Su. Truly laughable." Dongshan Wei, it seems that the lesson I taught you last time wasn't enough. Is your skin itching again? Su Fang's cold eyes swept over Dongshan Wei, scaring him so much that he couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. Xianlingzi sighed helplessly and left the palace with Su Fang. They returned to Xianlingzi's palace. Xianlingzi comforted Su Fang. "Fenghua, don't be discouraged. Grandpa will try to find an even more powerful refiner for you to forge a natal divine weapon for you." Su Fang said domineeringly, "Grandpa, there's no need. A divine weapon is only a support. One's own strength is the foundation. So what if I don't have a natal divine weapon? One day, I'll prove to those snobbish people that look down on me. I'll let Grandpa hold his head high in front of others. Grandpa is deeply gratified that you have such aspirations." Xianlingzi chuckled, but there was a lingering worry in his deep eyes. The life and death battle between Su Fang and Fan Su was already inevitable. The difference in strength between the two was too great. Su Fang had no chance of winning. Xianlingzi originally planned to pay a huge price to ask Master Lu to forge a powerful natal divine weapon for Su Fang. Even if he still couldn't defeat Fan Su, at least he could improve his strength a lot. Who knew that his luck was not good this time? He met the old man from Sanskrit, causing the matter of forging a natal divine weapon to fail. Without a natal divine weapon, Su Fang's hope of defeating Fan Su was even slimmer. How could Xianlingzi not be worried? After thinking for a moment, Su Fang said, "Grandpa, I plan to go to the treasure refining secret territory to learn the way of refining. In addition, I want to enter the chaos ruins of Kuan Su's divine sect. Please help me." Su Fang had been in Kuan Su's divine sect for so many years as Mo Fenghua. He had already figured out many things about Kuan Su's divine sect. In Kuan Su's divine sect, there were many secret territories for disciples to cultivate and train. The Chaos Ruins was one of them. It was also the most important secret territory of Kuan Su's divine sect. Training in the Chaos Ruins could not only improve one's cultivation rapidly, but if one's luck was good, he could also get a fortuitous encounter. Previously, through challenging the official disciples, Su Fang's strength had improved greatly. However, this method could only be used once. It was impossible to continue using it on the core disciples or even the special disciples. Kuan Su's divine sect also had a treasure refining secret territory. If Su Fang wanted to enter the treasure refining secret territory, he naturally wanted to absorb the great pregnant purple chi and improve his purple chi dharma spirit. Treasure refining secret territory? Chaos ruins? Xianlingzi was startled and immediately refused. No. However, due to the continuous changes in heaven and earth, the heavenly Tao law and the natural aura of heaven and earth were all infected by the evil force. The Chaos Ruins was also greatly affected, turning from a sacred training ground into a dangerous place. The disciples who entered the Chaos Ruins to train had a 60% chance of dying. There was even a special disciple whose strength was almost at the level of an elder. Fu, life, 9 true 9 sons, those who dare to take the risk and enter the Chaos Ruins to train were all disciples with firm Tao hearts and confidence in their own strength. Although Su Fang's previous performance made Xianlingzi look at him in a new light, he would never let his precious grandson take any risks. How could he let him enter the Chaos Ruins? As for entering the treasure refining secret territory to learn the way of refining, in Xianlingzi's opinion, it was just Su Fang's impulsive decision after being angered by Master Lu. The identity and status of a weapon refiner was obvious, but how could it be so easy to become a weapon refiner? Mo Fenghua had never cultivated the way of refining before, nor did she have any talent in refining. Now that she was cultivating the way of refining from the beginning, it was simply not proper work. Xianlingzi naturally refused. Xianling Dojo has a Xianling Pagoda for disciples to train. You can enter the Xianling Pagoda first. Chapter 1865. In addition, I will leave Kuan Su's divine sect and try to find opportunities for you to improve your strength. As for going to the treasure refining secret realm to cultivate the way of weapon refining, don't think about it for now. Focus on improving your strength. Don't be distracted. Xianlingzi made a thorough arrangement for Su Fang and then left in embarrassment. Su Fang felt helpless about Xianlingzi's meticulous care. After thinking for a while, going to the treasure refining secret realm to absorb the great fertile purple chi and entering the untainted ruins to train can only be put aside for now. I'll go to the Xianling Tower first. As long as I perform well enough, Xianlingzi won't stop me from going to the untainted ruins to train. Su Fang made his decision and immediately began to cultivate. At the same time, he also sent Uncle Chon to the Divine Kingdom to wait for Master Mo to come out of seclusion and see if he could help him refine a divine weapon. Su Fang used the Divine Stone to create the altar and used the heart of the sea and the ethereal truth. With the world tree in his body as the source, he crazily absorbed the essence of Kuan Su's divine sect world. His cultivation speed was so fast that even divine gods couldn't compare, let alone true gods. Unfortunately, his divine body had also reached the height of the heavenly god realm. His divine dwellings were also far more profound than other gods. Therefore, even though his cultivation speed was 10 times that of an ordinary god, it was still difficult for his cultivation base to increase rapidly. He was rich now, and Xianlingzi was not stingy with all kinds of cultivation resources, allowing him to use all kinds of elixirs, resources, and other cultivation methods. It was still very shocking. The 56th Yang Meridian. As he continued to cultivate the 9 changes of the 9 suns and various spiritual items and elixirs that contain the power of pure yang and fire, a new Yang Meridian would be born soon. The power of yang was the source of Su Fang's strength. At this time, Su Fang could already use the power of yang to activate the Origin Sacred Mirror and release the true fire of 9 suns. Joining hands with Shu Wanjin to activate the Primordial Chaos Sacred Mirror would result in huge repercussions. But it wouldn't be as serious as when he killed the Blood River Lord's clone. It was a pity that the Origin Sacred Mirror could not be exposed. It was a supreme artifact that could surpass the creation realm. Once it was discovered, how could Su Fang keep it with his current strength? Therefore, the Primordial Chaos Sacred Mirror could only be used as a last resort. He would only use it in a life or death situation. The Yellow Springs Blood Sea and Yellow Springs Reincarnation Art were also constantly improving. Although the Yellow Springs Blood Sea wasn't as powerful as the Great World, Su Fang's ability to refine and devour pills and life force was something that other gods couldn't possess. Therefore, as the Yellow Springs Blood Sea increased, his cultivation speed also increased. The Great Perfection Physical Body, as well as the Fire Cloud Imperial Body, Dragon Subduing True Body, Black Lotus True Body, and other true bodies built on the foundation of the Great Perfection Physical Body, with a foundation of the World Tree and even the Inner World. Therefore, Su Fang had been persistently cultivating and improving. In particular, the Earth True Body was originally made up of extinguished earth. Later, Su Fang merged the earth essence of the Kunwu Sacred Mountain and cultivated the Kunwu True Body. At this time, in Kun Su's divine sect, the cultivation methods, divine abilities, and a condensed divine essence were all of the earth element. The pills and spiritual items were also mainly of the earth element. Therefore, Su Fang's Kunwu True Body had been improved to an extremely high level. At this time, it was second only to the Fire Cloud Imperial Body. This made Su Fang's divine body tougher, broader, and thicker. Just as Su Fang was settling into a state of cultivation, Count Chong came to the capital of the Divine Nation and prepared to go to the weapons store to wait for Master Amo to come out of seclusion. Unexpectedly, the entire street where the store was located was surrounded by layers of the Divine Nation's army, while the inside was guarded by the cultivators of Kun Su's divine sect. When Count Chong asked around, he was shocked. It turned out that it was the 3 divine kings. Ever since he came to Kun Su's divine sect, he had been living in the secret realm where Master Kun Su cultivated. He had closed the door to all visitors, and no one knew why he came to Kun Su's divine sect. Unexpectedly, for some reason, he left Kun Su's divine sect and came to the Divine Nation. Coincidentally, he was in the area where the store was located. As a result, he alarmed Master Kun Su, who mobilized the Divine Sect's cultivators to clear the area around the store. No one was allowed to come close. Count Chong couldn't enter and couldn't see Master Mo, so he could only wait outside. What Count Chong didn't know was that Master Mo's store, which used to be inconspicuous, had now become the most important place in Kun Su's divine realm. Not only the 3 divine kings, but even the Star Billow Divine Realm's Grand Elder and Master Kun Su were all waiting at the entrance. Each of them stood ramrod straight, their expressions incomparably respectful. 30 years had passed since they arrived. The 3 divine kings and the Star Billow Divine Realm's Grand Elder were great figures who could shake the entire Star Billow Divine Realm with a stomp of their feet. Master Kun Su also stood at the entrance like 3 statues, not moving in the slightest. It was hard to imagine what kind of peerless figure was inside the store. Inside Kun Su's divine sect, because of a big matter, all the disciples were madly cultivating. The Kamiko Hoshino competition, the competition for the 100 contestants of Kun Su's divine sect, will be held 1,000 years later. There were more than 30 million official disciples, including ordinary disciples, core disciples, and special disciples. The competition for a mere 100 contestants showed just how cruel the competition was. Those who entered the top 100 would have the qualifications to head to the Star Below Divine Realm and compete with the geniuses of the Star Below Divine Realm, and over 1,000 smaller realms for the title of Kamiko Hoshino. Even if he couldn't become the 1 in 10,000 Star Below Godson, just showing his face in the summit competition was enough to make any disciple scramble like a flock of ducks and go crazy. Those who could enter the top 100 were definitely special disciples. But in the face of an opportunity to soar to the heavens, which disciple would be willing to miss such an opportunity? Even the ordinary disciples were doing their best, let alone the core disciples and special disciples. At Su Fang's place, no one came to challenge him again. It was very rare for him to spend a few decades of peaceful cultivation time. On this day, Su Fang walked out of his palace. Although his cultivation didn't increase much after 30 years of secluded cultivation, and he was still in the normal state of a third heaven true god, his strength, perfect physical body, and various true bodies had all increased greatly under the accumulation of a large amount of pills, spirit items, and other resources. Monster Saint Green Feather, Gue, and Long Niao also had a huge increase in strength. There was also the undead ruler, who was only a step away from reaching the divine realm. There was also Huang Lingyao. Su Fang originally planned to let her go after ascending to the myriad realms and let her fend for herself. Who knew that Su Fang would come to Kuin Su's divine sect by accident? If he sent her out, only death would await her. Su Fang had no choice but to keep her in his inner world for the time being. This woman was indeed amazing. Su Fang just casually threw some low-grade god essence pills to her, and she actually reached the peak of the middle stage of the Tao realm. However, there was still a huge gap between her and a true god. It's time to go to the Xianling Pagoda to train. Su Fang left his palace and went straight to the floating stone pagoda in the center of Xianling Dojo. The Xianling Pagoda was the training mystic realm of Xianling Dojo. It was actually a peerless treasure of Xianlingzi. Inside the Xianling Pagoda, it could transform into various training targets for disciples to train. It was extremely mysterious. Xianling Dojo had close to 2 million disciples. Therefore, not everyone had the opportunity to enter the Xianling Pagoda to train. Only core disciples and special disciples had the right to enter the pagoda to train. As for ordinary disciples, they had to make enough contributions to the dojo. Although the training opportunities in the Xianling Pagoda were precious, to Mo Fenghua, the young master of the dojo, wasn't it as easy as eating and drinking? After all, the entire dojo belonged to Xianlingzi. Furthermore, Xianlingzi spoiled his precious grandson to the point that it made others furious. Whoosh! Su Fang rode on a low-grade flying sword and arrived at the Xianling Pagoda. Below the Xianling Pagoda, countless disciples had gathered and were looking up at the Xianling Pagoda. Many disciples had angry looks on their faces. However, they all looked angry but did not dare to say anything. They did not know what had happened. Su Fang's appearance did not surprise the disciples. After a round of discussion, they became even angrier. Su Fang sensed everyone's gaze and helplessly touched his nose. I haven't done anything that would make people angry. Why are they still looking at me with such eyes? Ignoring the disciples, Su Fang looked at the Xianling Pagoda. The Xianling Pagoda was hundreds of feet tall. It did not look very big, but in fact, it had 99 levels of training spaces. The difficulty of the training was also different. In front of the Xianling Pagoda, there was a 10-foot-tall stone tablet floating. On it, there were names formed by intertwining divine patterns. It was the ranking of the disciples who had entered the Xianling Pagoda to train over the years. It was based on the performance of the training disciples in the Xianling Pagoda. It was an important basis for the disciples to enjoy resources and rise in status. This stone tablet was called the Xianling Tablet. Those who could be listed on the Xianling Dojo were naturally the outstanding disciples of the Xianling Dojo. Among the top 10, the lowest was a special disciple of the Kuin Su divine sect. Some even became elders of the sect. Because of this, The ranking on the Xianling tablet was very important. Every disciple paid attention to it. The Xianling Pagoda is the place for me to prove my strength to Xianlingzi. I need to obtain the best results in the shortest time possible. Only then can I convince Xianlingzi to let me enter the Chaos Ruins to train. 9 true 9 sons. There is only 1,000 years left until the competition between the top 100 of the Kuan Su divine sects, Kamiko Hoshino. This is an opportunity that belongs to my Su Fong. I cannot miss it. Su Fong looked at the Xianling tablet. His eyes flashed with decisiveness. This time, he needed to show his strength as much as possible. Then Su Fong noticed that Mo Yuntian's ranking on the Xianling tablet was ranked 15th. Those who were ranked in front of him were all former genius disciples of the Xianling dojo. It could be seen that his talent and strength were extraordinary. Mo Yuntian, it won't be long before I take your life and avenge Mo Fenghua's death. Su Fong smiled coldly and came to the door of the Xianling Pagoda. Lord Steward, disciple has been waiting here for half a year. Please allow us to enter the training. Disciple will be extremely grateful. Chapter 1866. It's not that I don't want to make an exception, but Mo Yuntian is training in the Xianling Pagoda. He plans to rush into the top 10 of the Xianling Pagoda. The manager was a middle-aged man. His lustful eyes wandered around the chest of the female disciple in the middle. A female disciple was still unwilling to give up. The Xianling Pagoda has a total of 99 levels. It can accommodate 1,000 people training at the same time. And Mo Yuntian has already passed the levels below. How can we affect him if we go in? The middle-aged manager sneered. Mo Yuntian is Xianling Dojo's only genius in the Xianling Dojo's competition for the Star Billow Godchild competition. His matter is a huge matter for Xianling Dojo. If it affects him and Sovereign blames us, who dares to take responsibility? A disciple behind the middle-aged manager laughed. If you want to accompany Mo Yuntian, why don't you wait for him to finish his training and go to his palace to serve him? The other disciples also laughed wantonly. The 3 female disciples left angrily. Encountering Su Fong, the 3 female disciples fiercely stared at Su Fong, making Su Fong confused. Arriving at the pagoda door, Su Fong walked into the pagoda, who knew that he would be stopped by the middle-aged manager. Young master, wait. Su Fong's eyebrows furrowed. What? The middle-aged manager laughed. Young master, are you planning to enter the Xianling Pagoda to train? Unfortunately, Mo Yuntian is training in the Xianling Pagoda. Young master, please wait outside. When Mo Yuntian finishes his training, it won't be too late for you to go in. Su Fong laughed. Do you know who I am? Young master is the young master of the Xianling Pagoda. Who doesn't know? The middle-aged manager replied respectfully, but in his deep eyes, there was a trace of disdain. As the young master, I entered the Xianling Pagoda to train, but I still have to wait outside. What's the reason for this? Su Fong's expression suddenly became cold. The middle-aged steward smiled and said, Young master, don't be willful. In this battle for Kamiko Hoshino, the sovereign has high hopes for Mo Yuntian. If Mo Yuntian's cultivation is delayed, the sovereign will definitely blame young master. The dozen or so disciples behind the middle-aged steward blocked the door and looked at Su Fong with sneers. Xianling Dojo is mine, Mo Fenghua's, not his Mo Yuntian's, Su Fong said domineeringly. Then, Su Fong took out a rune talisman. Grandpa, someone is bullying me. Since he had the identity of a young master and had taken on the bad reputation of Mo Fenghua, wouldn't it be a loss if he didn't act like a profligate? Boom! An aura suddenly descended in front of Xianling Tower and quickly condensed into the shadow of Xianlingzi's primordial spirit. His empty eyes fell on the middle-aged manager. You dare to stop Fenghua? The middle-aged manager and the dozen or so disciples behind him trembled and knelt on the ground. The middle-aged manager slowly told Xianlingzi about Mo Yuntian's trial in the tower. Xianlingzi said majestically, although Mo Yuntian's trial is important, in Xianlingzi's dojo, Fenghua's matter is more important than anything else. Let Fenghua go in, and you will be punished with 10,000 years of resources as punishment. The middle-aged manager and the dozen or so disciples thought that Mo Yuntian was definitely the young master of Xianling Dojo and the future supreme ruler. That was why they tried their best to curry favor with Mo Yuntian. They originally thought that the Kamiko Hoshino competition was imminent, and Mo Yuntian was Xianling Dojo's only hope to fight for a spot. That was why they dared to disdain Su Fang. Even if Xianlingzi knew, he would definitely not blame them. Instead, he would reprimand Su Fang and use this opportunity to reduce Su Fang's prestige. They didn't expect that Xianlingzi would actually disregard the overall situation and instead punish them heavily. This made the middle-aged manager and the dozen or so disciples shocked and depressed. Xianlingzi's primordial spirit shadow was about to dissipate. Suddenly, Su Fang continued, "Grandfather, Mo Yuntian being in the Xianling Pagoda will affect my trial." "Fine." When Xianlingzi's primordial spirit shadow nodded, a powerful aura enveloped the Xianling Pagoda. The pagoda door flashed with Xianguang, and a figure staggered out of the Xianling Pagoda. It was Mo Yuntian. Mo Yuntian, Fenghua is going to enter the Xianling Pagoda for the trial. You should rest for a while. It won't be too late to go in after Fenghua's trial is over, Xianlingzi said majestically. Shortly after, the primordial spirit shadow disappeared into nothingness. Mo Yuntian originally planned to charge into the top 10 and obtain great fame. This way, he would be able to obtain more resources from the dojo and divine sect and obtain the attention of the divine sect higher-ups. This way, he would have a greater chance of entering the top 100 and obtaining a spot for the Kamiko Hoshino competition. He didn't expect that at the crucial moment of the trial, Xianlingzi would personally kick him out of the Xianling Pagoda to make room for Su Fang. This made Mo Yuntian furious and ashamed. Mo Fenghua, you've gone too far. Mo Yuntian couldn't help but grit his teeth. His usual scholarly demeanor was completely gone. Back then, you schemed against me and almost took my life. You even killed Mo Qing in front of me to silence him. You secretly instructed the Divine Nation Emperor and hundreds of female disciples to frame me. You also instigated Dongshan Wei to humiliate me. Have you ever thought of going too far? Su Fang sent a primordial spirit message to Mo Yuntian. Mo Yuntian, today I'm just giving you a reminder. In the Xianling Dojo, I'm the young master. You're nothing. Also, I want to remind you, don't forget the challenge I gave you before. When the time comes, I will step on your head and make you regret everything you did to me. Following which, Su Fang extremely tyrannically pointed at Mo Yuntian. After a series of threats, he swaggered into the Xianling Pagoda. Su Fang's arrogance was intentional. Mo Fenghua was like a poisonous snake, constantly plotting against Su Fang. And Su Fang couldn't get hold of his weakness and couldn't borrow Xianlingzi's hand to eliminate him. Hence, Su Fang precisely wanted to use this kind of method to provoke him and make his Dao heart unstable. It was inevitable that he would do some crazy things. At that time, Su Fang would think of a way to kill him in one fell swoop. In a head-on challenge, Su Fang had a lot of misgivings. It was difficult for him to use all kinds of powerful divine abilities. If he avoided outsiders, Su Fang had full confidence in killing Mo Yuntian in one fell swoop and completely pull out this poisonous thorn. Mo Yuntian's eyes exuded an icy cold air. His body trembled slightly. Clearly, his heart was filled with extreme hatred. Mo Fenghua, I want you to die, the middle-aged manager advised. Mo Yuntian, messing up your Dao heart for this idiot trash Mo Fenghua is not worth the loss. He's only a third firmament true god. How many days can he last in the Xianling Pagoda? Just wait a few more days. I'll wait here. See how many levels he, Mo Fenghua, can pass in the Xianling Pagoda. Mo Yuntian let out a long breath. Smoothing out his breathing, he sat down cross-legged in the air outside the Xianling Pagoda. Mo Fenghua, this trash, passing the first 10 levels in the Xianling Pagoda's first trial, is already a miracle. First 10 levels? I think the first 3 levels are enough to choke. Those dozen over-disciples who were punished mocked and ridiculed Su Fong. The numerous disciples below were all extremely furious because Mo Yuntian occupied the Xianling Pagoda, but they didn't dare to make a sound. At this time, seeing Mo Yuntian being driven out of the Xianling Pagoda by Mo Fenghua domineeringly and overbearingly, everyone secretly cheered. At the same time, everyone was also very curious. What kind of result would Mo Fenghua obtain in his first time challenging the Xianling Pagoda? The moment Su Fong stepped into the Xianling Pagoda, what appeared before his eyes was a dusky array formation space. Trial taker Mo Fenghua. Choose a divine artifact. An indifferent voice sounded out from a space. Then, the array formation fluctuated, sweeping out over 100 divine artifacts. They were all some low-grade divine artifacts. The Xianling Pagoda's array formation space would give out the corresponding divine artifacts and trial targets according to the trial taker's cultivation. Su Fong was just a third firmament true god realm cultivation. The divine artifacts that he gave out naturally wouldn't be that high. The trial targets that appeared, their cultivation was at most peak third firmament true god realm. But their true combat power was entirely different. No need, Su Fong said very decisively. Huh. All of the divine artifacts disappeared in the array formation space. Whoosh! A burly man with a bare upper body shuttled out of the array formation. After the burly man appeared, one divine mark after another condensed on his skin. The muscles all over his body seemed to be condensed from rocks. A powerful and berserk aura immediately burst out, rushing towards Su Fong. Third firmament, true god realm. No pressure on me at all. Su Fong shook his head with a smile. He didn't circulate his divine energy and directly exchange blows with the burly man with his perfect physical body. In less than 10 breaths of time, he killed the burly man. Second level, I hope the trial opponents are a bit stronger. Only then will the trial be meaningful. Su Fong was teleported out and began the second level trial. Just as Su Fong was in the Xianling Pagoda trial. In the capital of the divine nation, outside the shop, the 3 great figures were still waiting respectfully. 3, come in. A majestic voice came from the backyard of the shop. The 3 divine kings' spirits were shaken. They revealed expressions of pleasant surprise and quickly walked into the shop. The Star Billow God Realm's great elder and esteemed Kuan Su stayed outside. Clearly, they didn't even have the qualifications to greet the existence that summoned the 3 divine kings in. Arriving at the backyard, they knelt on both knees and said respectfully, "Disciple greets Grandmaster." Master Mo was actually the Grandmaster of the 3 divine kings. At this moment, Master Mo's appearance was very different from before. He wore a plain robe and had an elegant temperament. His entire body exuded the aura of the great Tao, as if he was one with the world around him. His every move was in harmony with the great Tao. Master Mo sighed. Several hundred years ago, the heavenly Tao showed signs of abnormalities. After some divination, I found an opportunity to break through my shackles in this little world. That's why I chose to live in seclusion in the mortal world. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? The 3 divine kings asked joyfully. Grandmaster found an opportunity and broke through your shackles? Master Mo nodded. That's right. I was enlightened by someone and entered an epiphany. I should be close to breaking through my shackles. Enlightened by someone? The 3 divine kings' eyes were filled with shock. They said in disbelief, could there be a peerless powerhouse hidden in this little world? A peerless powerhouse? Master Mo chuckled. This person isn't a peerless powerhouse. He's just an interesting little fellow who's only at the true God realm. A true God realm cultivator, enlightened grandmaster.